Now I've plugged my bloody computer in, so it won't switch off again, hopefully. Hi, everybody. Grey Maniacs gather and all that stuff. We've got an hour to kill before our guest is going to be turning up. I'm going to let these guys do all the talking because, you know, they're good at asking questions. I'm just going to stand and go, ooh, and I'll probably pop up with one or two really stupid questions that everyone will be going, the hell did he ask that for?
Well, what you would do, you keep an eye on the chat, and
I will pick out any good questions. I'll pick them out and we'll put them to him because, you know, why not? That's half the job, isn't it? Really? Yeah. And
then I'm going to let Mark do most of the talking because if I get to talking, I don't shut up. And you know,
really, we hadn't noticed that, Kyle. I was kind of shocked. I always took you to be a quiet fellow, like sitting in the corner.
I am a bit of a wallflower, but I'm also lucky because for years I've been pegging him with questions and things like that. There are so few things I haven't discussed with him already,
right?
At a distance, not at a Zoom or at a con or anything. So it's going to be nice for me having him there, and I'm going to be mildly starstruck. Which
we're going to be talking about this, the multiverse. Yeah,
it takes a lot to get me starstruck, even a little bit. So, because you know, I hobnob with rock stars and presidents. So if somebody's got me starstruck, they're the real deal.
Who's your favorite president that you met, Kyle?
None of them. None of them.
You didn't like any of them.
They're all weasels. They're all weasels. They're all. When I met Obama the first time, and by the fifth time, I still was, you know, whatever. You're just a smooth talking politician, but I was 1,000% behind him. 1,000% behind him. So happy when he got elected, and he was on an election platform. We were going to get out of that stupid. I'm going to censor myself, but just know I'm censoring myself. We were going to get out of that stupid war that wouldn't end.
Yeah.
And his first act as president was to ship over 36,000 more people.
Right.
First act.
Right. Yeah, they do.
I wanted to hunt him.
They do tend to make promises and then completely change their minds on them as soon as they get any power. But let's not talk politics. Talking comic books, mate. Comic books.
Right.
Well, I would say Slick Willie was entertaining, but
we can ramble off into blinking comic book, into politics at some point. But let's at least try and start with blinking comic books, eh? I've got nothing to show. I showed my whole box of my Flash. Sorry, what was it? Firestorm. Yeah, Firestorm last night.
I'm not even in my library, and we went on for 3 hours last night with that. That was brilliant. That was cool. Tuesday show, but what's the point if we can have that much fun?
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get new people in every time. Everyone wants to hang out. Ray said he'll hang out with us next time, but he didn't realize that he missed me when I said you can come on. Well, we can have up to 10 people in here, but maybe that might be a bit much. But we'll see how it goes.
But yeah, I'm not even up in my library yet. I've had to splash cold water on my face.
I can show you some records if you like.
So you want to show records? Mark want to show?
Yeah.
I can show you packing boxes.
This is Bathory, Blood, Fire, Death, signed by Quorthon himself. I have, you know. There you go, signed by Quorthon himself. To Graham.
Nice. Guy knows how to autograph.
This is a comic show, and I know nothing about music. So that's sort of, you could have said it's signed by Graham Dilbert Washington, and I would have no idea.
He signed my other one.
Now here shortly you'll be able to show off some signed music memorabilia there, Mark.
We'll let you show some comics in, Mark. If you've got some,
I'll show you some comics. Okay, well
that's it. Have you got that Moonshadow you've been reading? Like maybe you can tell us about
it. Moonshadow here, yeah.
Tell us a bit about it because I never heard about it until you guys mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, so it was a personal project of JM's, me and JM, you know. Is that what we call him?
Yeah, JM.
It's a personal project of his for many years, and I think he went back and reworked it. And he was working for Marvel, for Jim Shooter, in around 83, I think. And he'd been talking to Karen Berger over at DC. And she'd said to him, well, if you come over here, we'll print Moonshadow for you. And I don't know why I'm telling this story. We've got the guy himself coming on in a minute.
He might have forgotten.
and you're going to Carl can correct me if I'm wrong here. And he went to see Jim Shooter and he said, I'm going to go over to DC because they're going to print my Moonshadow thing. And Shooter went, oh, well, we want you to stay. So you've done enough good stuff for us. We'll print it for you.
Yeah.
So,
they printed it on the creator-owned Epic Comics line.
Yeah. So they printed it. And then
was it in the Epic magazines?
Yeah, it's 12 issues. It's a 12 issue.
It was a single standalone thing. It wasn't in the Epic magazine. The one that was called Epic.
Yeah, Epic magazine was a whole different creature.
Yeah, different story.
No, this was the Epic.
Epic Illustrated was the different creature. The Epic header, they started with a couple of creator-owned things that was basically an offshoot of an apology going a decade or plus back with Jack Kirby. The reason Epic came around is because they had egg on their face from fighting about Jack Kirby's original art and credits and things like that.
Right.
And by the time they got around to doing that, they were like, all right, well, we're going creator owned too. We're going to try and keep up with competition. So
I think we should go into the the settings and change our names. So I'll be GF, Mark could be MO, you could be KA, and we just go by for just in honor of our guests.
No, I'm going to be WM. My initials are WM. How can we do this? Where do we go?
If I could do it without bumping out of here, because I think I'd end up bumping out.
Oh yeah, you can edit name. If you look at the three dots next to the microphone, edit name. Well, we're doing our first two initials rather than first and last name. So
I've got the three dots. Yeah,
3 dots next to what?
Are you doing your first and your middle name?
Edit name. Here we go.
What are you doing? Your first and middle name?
I'm going to be WM.
Settings.
First and middle name, is it? Or
do I go into settings?
No, I'm going to go my name's there, so I'll be GRJ.
Yeah. See, I got a settings where I can adjust the camera and stuff, but I'm not looking at anything that.
Where the microphone tab is, you've got 3 little dots next to the microphone tab, and you click on that. And it gives you,
I got a camera next to the microphone tab. So, well, if we're doing we're having fun. Hold on. I got to dismount. I'm going to go like this and see if this is accessible.
There should be a little thing saying edit name.
Yeah, no, on the things I have here, it says more, comments, settings, and cancel.
Okay.
And settings is just camera and microphone. So I can't do it there.
A blue box saying you're in the show.
Yeah, I got to back away from this. I'm in my little phone. I'm not on a computer screen. I'm on my little phone. So what I'm going to do is back out here, and then I'll come back in, and then you can get me in, but I'm going to back out. I'm going to leave.
See if you can change it.
Come back. All right, I'll be back.
We might let you back in.
Yeah, anyway, so 10 years later, so this was about 83, I think Marvel did it.
Yeah.
Then he did go over and then did the whole thing again with Vertigo.
Well, whole new art as well, or the same
new covers. It was different covers. Same artist.
Right.
So there's 2 sets of covers. There was the Marvel set of covers,
right,
and then there was the new set of covers. That's one of my questions to him. Is going to be: did you prefer the first set of covers or the second set of covers? He'll say he likes them both because they're both like the same artist.
Right, fair enough.
And it's a sort of coming of age story. It's a sort of science fiction-y coming of age story.
Okay.
But it's very literary. So there's lots of literary references. And there's a character in it who's great. He's a sort of cross between Chewbacca, the Thing, the Thing on the Munsters, and what's the guy on the Muppet suit? Animal on the Muppet.
Animal.
Yeah, and he farts and he masturbates and he loves pornography and he smokes.
Who farts and masturbates and loves?
We were just talking about you, mate. That's all.
Who is it?
Ira and Moon Shadow.
Oh, that character. Okay. Before we get too far, we are doing this right. It's first initial and middle initial, right? We're not doing last initials.
No, that's what we did. I've done my three initials. I've done.
Yeah, because the JM is for him, and I'll let him tell if he wants, even though
his first two names. Yeah,
but that's the first two, not the last one. So
yeah. Well, we know the last one's DeMatteis, didn't we?
Yes, we know, Roger, but I'm being tactful because he didn't want to be it. And you actually spelled the second name wrong. It's a C. It ends in C.
Okay.
So there, I corrected the corrector. Yeah, there we go. We're already off the rails. Yay! I'm gonna have a dog barking and all kind of crap. But
oh yeah, fair enough.
So,
when I was at the went up to the Nottingham Comic Convention, there was this guy there and he was selling sort of trade paperbacks, and I found this one, Plastic Man.
Did you spend more money than you actually?
No, I didn't actually. No, I tried.
Is that Jack Cole Plastic Man, or does that go all the way up into Hillary's run?
No, it doesn't go. This is the what's his name?
Jack Cole, the original.
Yeah, the original. Yeah, I mean it's super stuff.
That book right there.
Kyle Baker. It's Kyle Baker.
Oh, that's the new one. The Baker came after Hillary. That's the new stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of funny because Cole is like Hillary's model for that. Cole was his hero. That was Cole's Bible. And with Baker, Hillary was his model. So there's a link between the three of them.
I remember one of my earliest comics was Plastic Man and Batman teaming up in Brave and the Bold. That was in 1979. It was the creeps that stole Christmas or something like that. The mob that stole Christmas. And Batman and Plastic Man had to save Christmas from the mob. Do you remember that one, Mark?
I do actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a hell of a time digging out Christmas covers with all the trading I'm doing, but
I think I must like Christmas because I don't know, I like Christmas because I had a couple of my early comics. It's like that one where they save Christmas and the other one where Superman teams up with Santa Claus in DC Comics Presents.
my Christmas covers right now are like my autographed Peter David book with the Spider-Man with Santa with a gun and crap like that. But speaking of Christmas, because I just realized I showed this while we were off air, but I'm hanging with my nomies because I'm busting out the ugly Christmas sweaters / t-shirts now.
Oh no!
Put on a Santa hat. I don't know. Do I put on the Santa fedora or the full-on hat?
I've got a Cthulhu Christmas jumper. I must dig that out again. I only get to wear it once a year. It's shocking. But I make sure I wear it for the whole week.
You say jumper, and I think of a baby onesie. I will never. That is one English idiom I will never get used to. What's jumper to you guys is a sweater.
Yeah, you call them sweaters for some weird reason.
And a jumper to us is what you put a little kid in to go to sleep with. They're like nappy.
Yeah, that's because you couldn't bother to use the words that we gave you, and you decided to make up your own ones. It's like, well, where we got our language from, they use this word to mean that. I know, let's just change that meaning for the heck of it and make up a new word, or we'll alter the word so it means something different. That's just American logic, man. What's it all about?
Who's to say? Hey, Roger, if you got some stream going on there and you got a few minutes, why don't you jump in here for a minute and say, hey.
He can't. His missus has always got the internet on Wednesday. This time Wednesday, he's told us.
Yeah, but I mean, he's in the comments section, so maybe we can get him to at least pop in and say, hi, I made an appearance, and then he can dip back out.
We've only got 45 minutes until we got the meet. Anyone can pop in if they want, but, we don't want to pop in and then we kick them out when JM comes in. It seems a bit rude.
Whatever. They get to make an appearance on a famous show. Before it's all done, you're going to be Jonathan Ross. You'll be Jonathan Ross. He'll be
he's going to be Graham Norton.
Graham Norton. Yeah. And I guess I'd be David Letterman. I mean,
actually, talking about Jonathan Ross used to live in the house on the corner of my street. We used to see his mum quite a bit. So
did you ever fish out that video of him hanging out with Steve Ditko?
No.
Oh, you need to fish out that video, and it's actually not video of him Oh, live streaming a comic.
Yeah.
Okay. Where Jonathan Ross goes to New York, and a guy's like, "Hey, you know, Ditko lives right around the corner," and they just show up at his door. They're looking at comic shops, and they show up at a door, and they don't take the camera in or don't turn the camera on when they go in. But Ditko invites them in for a while and draws for him and stuff. But man, that's a brilliant thing because he goes full comic nerd. He goes from Forbidden Planet to Ditko's house. He's like, you know, I am an unabashed comic book nerd, and I'm like, well, I like Jonathan Ross even more now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had a chance to get Ditko's autograph, and
he's a bit snooty. I've seen him at a couple of
Yeah, I heard he was quite a surly chap.
He doesn't engage with the common man.
He's an oddball. He's an oddball and doesn't even want to be associated with Spider-Man. But during the last couple of years of his life, he was welcoming people.
I'm not talking about Dick. I'm talking about
Ross.
Oh yeah, okay. I don't know much about.
Yeah, Ross would go to those things and kind of be. He's a star, but Ditko wouldn't acknowledge anything. But his last couple of years, he's like, whatever. Here's my address. Mail me something. I'll write you back. He was just writing back all kind of friends of mine. We just sending them letters. Hey, thanks for being a fan. Appreciate you.
Wasn't there something where like all his art that he got back, he never really appreciated the art that he did, and he was just using it to like scribble out and write over that kind of thing, didn't he?
He gave the original art to like the Library of Congress or a museum or something. He gave multi-million-dollar worth of art. Just said, here. I don't want it here. Put it in that. It's big enough to be in that for pop culture, but I don't care. That I liked about him. But no, he was all into Ayn Rand and the antithesis of what I am.
I saw a great thing, a really funny thing on the internet today. It was a guy who'd written to Steve Jobs back in about 83, something like that. I'd written to him saying, "Can I have your signature?" And Steve Jobs had written back, "Dear Mr. Smith, I do not sign autographs. Signed Steve Jobs." See,
he must have realised he was doing that.
No, of course he did. He knew he was doing it.
See, that was tongue in cheek good. One of the dumbest things, because I spent years, like I'd do charitable stuff, and I'd have to contact. I'm the guy that would call anybody, so they put me in contact with like these sports teams and stuff like that, and then, you know, I'm sending back.
Hey, I'm raising auctions and stuff.
Well, I'm raising money for Special Olympics. Do you have something we could put in an auction or whatever? Yeah. You know, and I'd made all these connections all across the country, all across North America, quite literally. And excuse me, one that got me because I thought, well, there's a handful of people that I'm not even going to try and hit up for charity, but maybe I'll drop them a letter and say, hey, how you doing? Big fan. Maybe one day, you know, I can get you to sign this card or something. No big deal either way. I just want to say thanks, you know. Look forward to hearing from you if I do. And this is all really pre-big internet stuff. I mean, it was out, but not much. Okay, we all disappear. What button did you push there? There we go.
But, I did it on purpose. I just want to look. I was going to have a quick look at that so people know what's coming up. Oh, yeah, carry on.
But Magic Johnson, you know, the basketball player that had AIDS and stuff like that, he was on one of my favorite teams of the Lakers and stuff. And I just...
Was his Johnson actually Magic? Is that why he was called Magic Johnson?
I seriously doubt it. But he was one of my favorite players, and I sent a letter and sent a card in it. And I said, you know, if you could sign this, great. You know, if not, whatever. You know, just happy to say thanks. And I got a letter back from his team. And I thought, well, this is exciting. He actually took the time to write me back. How sweet is that? And I open up the letter, and it says, we're sorry to inform you that he doesn't have time to do all this. And I'm like, you got time to send me this letter, and you probably got 1,000 autographs stacked up for another bunch of other things. You know, I'd have been happy if nothing came back. You know, don't send me anything. Don't acknowledge me. Because that means, okay, I just got lost in the shuffle. I don't care. I didn't have high expectations. But basically, they wrote me back to say, we don't have time for you. And I'm like, well, you ass. You just proved you had time for me. You just spent the money on the shipping. If you didn't sign my card, you could have thrown in an 8x10 because I've worked with these teams and these little sports franchises. Like I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag here. The Indiana Pacers have what they call the closet, and it's as big as the garage I'm sitting in right now. This just enormous room. It had signed basketballs of entire teams going back a decade or more at the time. Now, this is in the 90s, and this is going back to the 80s. And they'd have them sign 100 balls. And the ones that weren't immediately given away were stacked up in here. And I mean, there were thousands of signed basketballs by individual players and teams. There were shelves just stacked with 8x10 already autographed pictures of players who were no longer playing, and they just kept stacking and stacking and stacking. At any point in time, they could go back in this room and pluck an autograph of anybody that had ever played for that team, pretty much, ever. And every franchise has that. So that they don't have to bother a said player or anything like that. The secretaries get it. It's like somebody says,
sit him down and get him to do 100 or 200.
Yeah,
once every couple of months, 2 or 3
I
months.
mean, if you get the personal thing back you sent to them, it rolled right through their hands. But they still have a secretary or something like that that'll filter it through them. But they have the teams themselves. They have tens of thousands of autographs. There are tens of thousands of Ronaldo autographs sitting in a closet somewhere, just waiting to be passed out to kids. Because again, he'd sign a couple hundred once a week. They have contractual obligations with these card marketers and things like that, and they also have contractual obligations with the teams where, okay, you have to do, say, 3 certain visits to the charity that we run through, and you have to put that in the contracts. And then you've got your own, and the team will support like 3 of your events during the course of the year and do this, yada, yada, yada. And it's all very regimented. And they just stack the stuff up. They'll sit down and go, okay, I need to sign 500 autographs today. So they sign 500 autographs on whatever. And it takes a couple hours, and then they go on with it, and they've just got files of them. And they'd flood the market with it, and it'd lose all its value. But they need to open up those doors and go, here you go, guys. This stuff was meant to be free anyway, but we're going to be greedy for $2.50. We're going to be so greedy, we're keeping stuff for 30 years. What? And all the major sports franchises do that.
Well, it makes sense. They've got other ways of making money, I suppose.
But they're not making money. They're shoving it in a closet.
Well, I suppose down the line they might do.
Charitable things, and then they're like, "Well, we'll keep the 8x10s and do the," but they're not. They're shoving it in a closet. These rooms literally look like the shelves in my garage behind me. It's disgusting because they just need to open it up and go, here you go. Here's a charity here. How much would a signed basketball from a team from 30 years go for in your charity? Where somebody'd say, all right, I'll give you $500 for that ball. Well, $500 would fund a Special Olympics team for an entire year. And it's just, it's just sitting in a closet. Which, again, it's not really a closet. It's more like a foyer with high ceilings. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Just made a new logo. Ta-da! You can't really read it, though. It's supposed to say the Geeky Weekly
I thought
show.
that was the existing logo.
Yeah, I just made it so we can put it in the corner of the thing.
Yeah, instead of your furry face.
Instead of my little face there.
Furry
put
face.
It up there.
Yeah, why is your furry face up there and our furry faces aren't up there?
We've got Cthulhu.
I really needed to shave, but
got me and Ranger Sly.
Yeah. 2 similar people, really.
Well, yeah.
I gotta make my new logo something one of the guys have drawn for me. If I was gonna make a new logo, it would be Hillary's picture of the spare tentacle, but
I'll try and make that big, I think. So, yeah. Thought Bubble. I'm sure they did another one earlier this year. It just seems bizarre that it was so winking.
It's a year since we had.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe it, man. How quickly has the time gone?
I know.
Did you see the other guys up there from the UK scene?
Yes.
Pete goes up there.
Yeah, Pete goes up there. The Killer Comics guys go up there. Attention Seeking Geek.
Yeah.
He goes. Who else?
Did you hang out a lot with them or just?
Well, last year, I went up on I was only there one night.
Right.
So I met up with them at the actual conference, but I didn't meet up with them for a drink, which I'm hoping to do this year.
Yeah. There you go. That's better.
We need to meet up for a drink bad. Hey, Grim, give me a 10-minute warning before we're going to pull him in, because I'm probably going to need to mute my stuff, trot upstairs,
Well, all right. Oh, blimey. Oh, yeah, no, he's still got half hour yet. But he's not popped up in the back office or anything like that yet. So, assuming he makes it, fingers crossed.
Well, he's reconfirmed already this morning. I'm guessing he's already checked the stream.
Yeah.
I checked it. I sent him, and it came through here.
You can take 10 minutes now if you want. It's up to you, mate. If you need to go and do something now, you can.
No, I'm gonna wait till we got about 10 minutes before that. I'm gonna stay as comfortable as possible for as long as possible. Because if I'm hoping we get more than an hour, just because we're having fun talking.
Who wants to see my lovely slab collection?
Yeah, I didn't know you owned a slab.
I've got 5 slabs, mate. 5.
Oh, hell, mate.
I won this one in a contest. I do occasionally win contests. This is my lowest grade one. This is an 8.0.
Okay.
Deadpool Merc with a mouth.
Yeah, that's all right.
That's not bad. Yeah, I'm not complaining about.
What made that one special? Was it a variant cover?
I've no idea. I won it. I've no idea.
In the competition.
And this I got the rest of most of it. There's one more that I won, and I got about, I think it was free, sent to me by Unruly Simeon. He sent me this one, Black Cross, the first appearance of Concrete in a 9.4.
Okay.
Because I think he upgraded it.
Concrete who?
Concrete. It's just called Concrete.
Not the one from Dark Horse, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is Dark Horse. Dark Horse presents Black Cross. I think it was the first. I think it was the first
appearance of Concrete. The first appearance of Concrete was years before that.
This is what I was told. First appearance of Concrete and Black Cross. There you go. So you can take it. You can take it out with CGC.
There's no way that's 1983.
Yeah, it is. It's the first Dark Horse comic, apparently. That's what I was told. It hasn't got the year on it.
What's that? Hasn't got the year on the label?
Yeah, Black Cross #1. It says first appearance of Concrete and Black Cross. First Dark Horse title. So, yeah.
What year was that?
I don't know. It doesn't say it on it, mate. You was the one who just told me it was like 1983. I have no idea.
It doesn't have the year underneath the Dark Cross. Wow. Okay, now there's something.
I don't think it's 1983 though, because on the back there's a picture. It says copyright 1986.
I've got a Black Cross one here from 19. It's showing on Go Collect. Black Cross one. It's not the same cover as the one you've got though.
Ah,
yeah,
interesting.
I'm terribly confused by that because
so maybe this is a reprint of it. Then I don't really know. This is
up until I found out he appeared first in Dark Horse Comics Presents #1.
Yeah, that's what it says on the back here. Dark Horse Presents.
Oh well, okay, there we go. It's not Black Cross. It's Dark Horse.
Well, it says Dark Horse Presents and this is Black Cross. So
no, that's Dark Horse Comics Presents #1. Okay, I didn't realize that was that. I was like, he didn't appear in Black Cross. He appeared in Dark Horse Comics Presents #1, and that's what that is.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm not confused.
That is Dark Horse Presents #1.
Yeah.
First appearance of Concrete.
Yeah, and that's where, because I got issue 2 of that. I've never even had issue.
This is why I don't get slabbed. They're too bloody confusing. Bloody hell! I didn't realize you could do.
I've never had #1, and I've always wanted #1, and I'd probably look through that because they.
So what grade was that?
That's 9.4. 9.4.
Yeah, that's a decent price right there.
It's $65.
That was it. It was a free gift from Unruly Simeon. I was waiting for it. Like literally, I mentioned myself because he was showing some. He did a video showing some of his indie
Oh, that's
stuff,
great. Oh, that's a really nice one.
Yeah, I think this might be a reprint, man. This is not the
That's an absolute
because it says on there AH after AH. I think it's him reprising his own card. I did look it up. I won this one as well. I can't remember where I won it from now. It's terrible, isn't it? I've only won a few things and I can't remember who it was I won it from.
Yeah,
and,
that's
I think this is going for $80. I looked it up on because I showed it last night because I think Carl showed the original or someone showed the original.
I've got the original.
And I said, oh, I've got that, and I showed it slab, but this is a reprint or not a reprint, but a rejig of the. Oh, it's not good for my back, guys. Let's stand up and get them.
We get to see some great booty. All right. Hey, if I go up there soon enough, I might dig out my 6 or 7 slabs.
Right. And Wolf the Barbarian. This is another one from Unruly Simeon. Oh, you got it as well. What's your grade?
Mine's ungraded, mate. You've beaten me.
I win then. I win. It's like Slab Snap. We play Slab Snap or Slab Pop Trumps.
What grade is yours, Graham? Is that a 9 something?
9.6.
Yeah, mine's not as good as that. Mine's not as good as that.
That was a present from Unruly
That's
Simeon.
unheard of with those. Those were put together so shoddy. I see those all the time, but never in good shape. Somebody pressed and cleaned that one good.
Those were something now, Gray. That's probably worth more than your Dark Horse Presents one.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure what they get these things.
I don't know. I want that Dark Horse Presents one.
And this is my last one. Do you know, right, first appearance? Who's this the first appearance of? The Shadow of the Bat #1.
Is that where they started the Court of Owls?
No. Later. Court of Owls was a whole.
God, I should know this.
He likes to make a tally mark on his body every time he kills someone.
Oh, what's his name?
Calendar Man.
Metalrog has said it in the chat. Oh, we've got a Cthulhu Heathen in the chat. Hello, Cthulhu Heathen. Cthulhu.
Oh yeah, Zaz.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird name. I'm never too sure I pronounce it.
Zaz. I've got a couple of that.
It's his first appearance, yeah. Alan Grant story, Norm Brayfogle art, Brian Stelfree's cover. First appearance of Jeremiah Arkham and Victor Zaz.
Yeah, that's a $100 book, that Wolf, now.
Yeah, cool. Nice. If I ever need the money. Cthulhu Fatagan. There you go. You got a quick Cthulhu fans in the proper reverent manner. The stars are almost right, guys. Just remember that.
Do you speak Cthulhu then?
No, I kind of like, I'm always trying to remember the chant, but I can't quite remember the chant. It's Flagui, Nagonafowl, Waganagal, Fatagan, something like that. But yeah, I can never remember it exactly.
I'm gonna mute myself.
Sure that's not Vogon.
My way upstairs.
No, that's not Vogon. No, or Klingon.
Don't get me speaking Vogon. We'll never get out of here.
So Waganagal, Faganagal, Fatagan, something like that. I can never remember it. In his house at Riley, dead Cthulhu lies dreaming, something like that. That's what it means. And when the stars are right, he will come. He will return. Why am I on big screen? Because I'm not showing anything now. All right. Oh, I hate that. That's not a very good layout. There you go. It's more like it. How many books are you taking up there? Then you must be.
I've got a load. I've got a full box. I'm that's actually what I was doing, was narrowing it down because I've got too many.
Yeah.
So I'm only going to take the sort of.
Well, you got 3 days there now. You say, did you? So you can do a few each day.
The conference is Saturday and Sunday, but I'm going up Friday, so I'll be there all day Saturday, all day Sunday.
Yeah, you don't want to go up and be walking around the same day, do you? Is it fair drive? It could be a fair drive for you, isn't it? Harrogate?
Yeah. That's a sort of 4-hour drive. Yeah, so
the beer's pretty cheap up there, isn't it, as well?
It's a bit cheaper than London, but it's not that cheap.
Is it not? Last time I went up that way, I went up to Shildon near Darlington for a gig.
Okay, yeah.
A band I'd like for years had finally reformed, and it was the only gig they were doing. So I went 5 hours on the coach up to Shildon.
Okay.
I couldn't believe how cheap the beers were. I'm used to London gig prices. And I've got a tenner out, so I'm not expecting too much change. You've got like, he's like, oh.
I went into a pub. This was a couple of years ago. I was stopping. I was on my way. I was working somewhere. And anyway, I stopped off and I had to stay somewhere overnight. And I thought I'll stay in Morecambe, and I'll go and see the Eric Morecambe statue. So I went to see I went, and it was bloody miserable, and it was raining. Anyway,
that's North of England for you.
I saw the Eric Morecambe statue, and there was this pub just opposite it, and I walked in there, and it was like I was going back sort of like 30 years.
Oh, right.
Bitten sawdust, and there was a couple of old guys.
Did everyone turn and look at you?
Yeah, well, there were just two old guys with flat caps on, you know.
Did they have whippets?
They did have whippets. And I went
first on their trouser legs.
Yeah, and I said, and there was something mild. I hadn't had mild for a pint of mild forever.
That's so nice, mild. I'm surprised they don't get more places.
I think it was it John Smith's mild? Anyway.
So very easy.
I'll have a pint of mild.
Yeah.
And I put down a $5. This was 2 or 3 years back, and you know, you're at least £5 a pint in London, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
She gave me £4 back. I said,
"Yeah."
The wrong change says no, love. It's £1 a pint.
Bloody hell!
I said, I haven't paid £1 a pint since about 1982.
Yeah. I don't think it was ever that cheap when I first started drinking. Even I don't know. Not in London anyway. But $1.99 maybe. I can't even recall $1.99 a pint. But yeah, are you a Real Ale guy, by the way?
Yeah, I do. I like my Real Ale. Yeah.
Good man. Yeah.
No, I've watched your beer program a couple of times, thinking I need to go around Gray's when he's got a new delivery.
Yeah, there's some nice ones. I'll try. It's not a bad service. It's not super expensive, but it's kind of like I've kind of had to stop it because my means are not that great at the moment. So I thought I had to cut back on that. But they're not bad though. But like, there's a lot of stuff.
I need to order my advent calendar beer.
Oh, nice. Yeah, the trouble is there's a lot of hoppy stuff on there. I'm not that keen on the real hoppy IPAs.
Yeah, I quite like hops. Yeah, the Brewdog do one, and
right. Some of them, it's like the hops are there to punish you. It feels like with some of them, you know what I mean? It's so like, but yeah, it's interesting. It's different. I think me and Eric's going to go to an offie or something and pick up a few different ones and just do a test. Try and find someone who's not had before. You know, I think it works out a bit cheaper than I think they're probably about £4 each when you get from, say, for like a little can like that.
Yeah,
I think you can get them cheaper out of the off licenses and that.
Yeah, we're now talking beer, not comics.
Talking beer now, yeah. We've gone over to beer. Are you
I don't want to interrupt the beer talk, but do you want to see the handful of slabs I got?
I want a beer now. Go on, you show us your slabs then.
I want a beer too. And yeah, I had to mute to get up here, and sadly, I left my charger downstairs, so if my phone starts kicking out, I may have to do that dance again. But recently did a trade with Taylor Winder, so I got Sandman 15.
Okay, it's nice.
9-4. I'm looking to get the Sandman run. I'm not a real run guy, but I figure if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna get my favorites.
Yeah.
And you know,
they're confirmed series 2, by the way.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
I'm also gonna get Neil Gaiman on here. Mark my words. I don't care. Doubt me.
Come on, stop writing your checks if you got
a 96 of 39. Stop writing my checks. Tell me that in 10 minutes when the master himself.
He's not here yet, mate. He's not here yet. I'm pessimist, mate. Until it's done, and until I see him, I don't believe. He's going to come on and I'm going to say, well, I don't know what JM looks like. He could be one of Carl's mates pretending.
That's a 9-4 of 45.
Well, I'll tell you, Carl, I think those are really good pickups at the moment because those are still really cheap, those issues of Sandman. I think they're going to go up when the second series comes on.
And pretty much all I traded for it was the first appearance of Voltron.
Okay.
And a couple of filler books.
Right.
And there's issue 71 and a 96.
Yeah.
So I can't read them, but again, I mean, I love the series. I don't care how I have them.
You'll pick up a copy of those for $5.
Yeah.
Now, then I got these in another trade. Again, it was value for value, and what the guy had, he couldn't match what I had. so he had to go a little bigger. So I got a 9.4 Power Man fist.
Second Sabretooth, isn't it?
Second Sabretooth.
Yeah.
So that was a good one. Now these next two are kind of bigger. Even though this is only a 7.0, but I'm not even going to take this one out of wrap.
Oh, yeah.
But Flash 152 from 1965.
Oh, yeah, that one.
I've got that one. I'll try to get 150 to the end of that run, but yeah, it's all slow going.
That's 7.0, and then this one. Oh, all right, Mark. I know it's coming. I'm not going to take this out of the wrap either. But
that's nice.
Batman Millennium #1, signed by Sheldon Moldoff with a Batman head sketch on it.
Now you see, you didn't put that on the trade. We'll have to do a second trade now, Kyle.
And this isn't even a convention sketch and things like that. It is actually a Dynamic Forces.
Nice.
And it's out of the Dynamic Forces bag. Back then, CGC wouldn't grade it, so PGX would, and it's not.
Tricksy hobbits, throw yourself in next time.
But it is
full of a took.
Very limited, and anybody who knows anything about comics, Bob Kane didn't do much. Most of the art on the early Batman was done by Sheldon Moldoff.
Yeah, I heard a lot of that. He was very. You said he was a right kind of like a bit of a wheeler dealer, wasn't he? He had his own artist who he got.
He barely did any writing because that was all Bill Finger, and he barely did any art because that was Moldoff.
He had a bunch of he had students, didn't he? And he just got them to do it.
And it was such a bad thing, and he did him so wrong that Neil, or is it Steranko, punched him in the face. Steranko punched. It was either Neil or Steranko, but I think it was Steranko that punched him in the face. So.
I vaguely remember hearing that, someone telling that story on YouTube. Whoever it was who did it, I can't remember who it was who did it though.
Yeah, Kane made Stan Lee look quiet. So Kane made me look quiet. So
blimey.
That's not possible, Kyle.
But I can be a wallflower when I want to be, but you'd never know it. But yeah, that's my handful of slabs. So yeah, I figured that would have got your attention there, Mark.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
You got loads of slabs in your Mark.
I've got quite a few. I have got quite a few slabs. But having said that, it's less than 2% of my collection. So I've probably in the last 3 years I've sent 10 comics, 15 comics off for slabbing, and some of those were Alan Class ones, just so I could get the one of one.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, Mark, I can still access the tub. So if you want to talk later, I can still.
Yeah. Well, let's do this deal, and then we'll probably do deal 2.
Yeah, I don't exactly. You got to finish the first deal before you can work on the next deal.
Life is a deal ever happening.
Didn't you have a video once, Mark, where you was not use CGC again or something? I'm sure there was a video once where you.
Yeah. So
taking your fist in the air at them.
I mean, CGC, I think that just that they just have they were taken over by BlackRock, I think. So they're owned by a fund, one of these fund companies, and they're just in it for the profit.
Yeah.
I did the video when they announced that they were no longer going to put loads of information on the label.
Right.
Which was crazy.
There was a backlash, wasn't there? And they sort of changed their mind, didn't they? Everyone was backlashing.
Yeah. My video. I'm such an influencer that they changed their mind.
You was the first, and it just snowballed after that. Everyone else just did videos afterwards.
Yeah. They said, "Oh, well, it's available if you're a member and you do the scan." You're at a conference. You can only do that if you're a CGC member. If you're not, you go along. You can't scan it. You can't get the information. It's a rip-off, man. I don't know. I mean,
I didn't even know about slabs until I started doing comics back in 2018 when I started doing content here, because literally I was in my own bubble of like collecting. I didn't have any friends who were into it. I didn't look at, all I did was got my weekly books, monthly books rather. Like the shop I went to was like a very strange, like run by a pretty odd sort of people, a bunch really who run that shop. And there was everyone else in there whenever I went in there. So literally I didn't have like any people I'd chat to about comic books. I didn't bother looking online or anything like that for news or anything. So I just literally just bought what came in. So I didn't know about slabs and like things like grails and keys and all that. I was like, what's that? And when I first started doing YouTube.
Yeah.
So this is you. You're the influencer's influencer, mate. That's what you are. You're the influencer's influencer with your video there, your CGC video.
Forgot to have my mic muted there. Hey, Mark.
You still need your 10 minutes, Kyle, because we've got.
No, I used it coming upstairs. So.
Okay, cool.
How much of your collection you willing to let go of, Mark? I brought two more things over.
So what I've done. Yeah, okay.
Did you get your charger, Kyle? Did you get
I may go down and get it. If I need it, I'll go get it.
I can't see all that, Kyle. I can only
that's
see
just a card of All American Comics 16. But it's signed by Martin O'Dell.
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
The creator of Green Lantern.
Yeah.
And then if you really want to let go of a lot.
That's a weird one. That is. It's very rare, but how many people actually are seeking it?
It's a Superman Candy and Surprise. It's got a bottom off it. What is it?
It's a Superman candy coupon.
Yeah.
And there's less of these on the censuses for the card companies than there are of Action Comics #1.
Wow.
This is Superman candy from 1940.
Wow. Yeah, those are the type of things I like.
So it's like Callie's had a change of heart over what they want.
Ordinarily rare.
With slabs.
Yeah, I've got some sympathy with that. For me, the slabbing is one of the reasons is it's going to make it easier for my kids when I eventually
That's 100% the reason I have slabs. That's 100%.
If you're going to sell something, so for instance, one of the comics I didn't sell to Kyle because he'd already got it was X-Men 129, which I think is potential 9/8 candidate. Now, if in a 9/0, a raw, you're probably going to struggle to get more than $300 or $400 for it. But if it gets graded and it's a 9/8, it's $3,000. So for me, it's worth paying the $80 on that to get it graded, because potentially you can take it from $350 to $3,000. So you spend $80 getting it graded. So those are the type of ones that it's worth potentially getting graded. There's no point if you've got a comic that's worth $80. Don't spend $80 getting it graded. It's pointless.
Unless I also thought about if I had a comic from my childhood, I'd do that too. I'd probably spend.
Oh, okay. You want to preserve some.
It's the first Kitty Pryde and first Emma Frost.
Right.
But I already had a high grade raw, so I was like, nope, don't need that.
Yeah, I'm looking for like a 2.0 maybe in that. What does the 2.0 go for?
You'll get one of those for 10 quid, 20 quid.
That's my level. I kind of I've got my list of X-Men on there, but I'm not super bothered about X-Men. You know what I mean? I'll get them when they come up. Really, I've got like masses of lists, but like there's ones that I want over others.
Yeah.
I'd much rather finish off my Flash run and me Green Lantern run. But I think I've got as many of the Green Lantern runs I'm going to get now because
So when Kyle asked me, so I'm prepared to trade stuff I don't. I've now sort of worked out what it is I want in my personal collection and what I don't want. So Batman detectives, especially early Batmans, early detectives, Fantastic Four, especially 1 to 100. So those are my sort of key things. So I don't collect Batman, I don't collect Hulk, I don't collect Captain America, I don't collect Iron Man, but I've got quite a lot of them. So I am prepared to sell those because they're not,
that's my Green Lantern list, guys. If anybody's got any of them, they don't need.
73 to 88. I think I have got some grey.
If Lady Fantastic decides she doesn't want this,
That's nice. I've got that one.
Oh, then you don't need that one. But yeah, that's already committed to Lady Fantastic. Should she come out?
The ones I was hoping to finish off this year is my was it Operation Ghost Moon Defenders? So,
yeah, I love the way you put those together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, last time it was Project Phantom Atom Hawk, and I managed to complete that one. I've got all my Phantom Stranger, all my Atom, and all my Hawkman. I'm well pleased with that. I love them.
Yeah,
you go through them, and there's all great covers in those runs as well. So I'm really happy to have all them.
I'm looking forward to finishing my Defenders run, but I'm starting to get kind of stupid excited right now.
Yeah,
he's about to pop up backstage. I'm actually genuinely excited. I'm like, hey, cool. Jim DeMatteis is coming on air with us.
Ghost Rider number 21. Let's have a look. Just one more to finish my Ghost Rider.
Oh, man. I wish I'd have gone over that list with you because I'm pretty sure I have one of those I could have just given you.
There's no point telling me that now, mate. It's all no, it's fine.
I would have just
given. You've already given me plenty, man. It's all good. It's all cool.
You might have to trade some of your slabs, some of those Green Lanterns, Gray.
Yeah, I know. So I'm not. That's like I've kind of given up on them. They're kind of like dream Green Lanterns now.
Oh, I think I've got some of those.
To be honest, one of them I've got, but as a facsimile, if I can get facsimiles of them, that's fine. You know, I'm not.
I am such a knob. I only got frames, and I got the wrong size frame for my Matilda art.
Oh.
I didn't even measure, and it's the wrong size frame.
Foolish boy.
I am such a knob. I can use these for other things, but that's not a problem. But yeah, I feel like such a knob. But granted, now I may already have a frame for that then. So that's good. Oh.
I thought I was down to only one Moon Knight, but looking at this, it says I've got 3 more Moon Knight to get. I thought I was down to 1 on there, but obviously not. Oh, well. Never mind. Maybe
so you got Moon Knight 1?
Yeah, I got Moon Knight 1.
That's a big one. The plat issues and that are big.
They've gone up. So we was showing off some comic books last night. Yeah, volume 1, Callie. We were showing off some comics last night, and we were showing if we bought this in 1980, it only cost you $2,000. Now it's worth like $2 million or whatever. That we was doing that, and I was thinking I've been quite lucky with some of the ones that I have got. Like I've got Miss Marvel, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years ago, I don't know, and it was like cheap as anything. And now Miss Marvel number 1 is quite expensive, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And Savage She-Hulk has shot up a lot recently as well, and probably Sensational as well. I'm not too sure actually. But I got Sensational She-Hulk 1 to 20 for about £1 each on eBay a few years ago. So it's just a matter of luck, isn't it? A matter of lack of timing, isn't it, really? So I think I've missed out on lots of comics that I could have got, but there's plenty that I've got that other people haven't been able to get, So it's just a matter of what say la vie,
Yeah, I mean, if you shove up something in your attic for long enough, you pull it out 30 years later, it's worse. I mean, unfortunately, I haven't got the 30 years later left to go.
No, oh gosh, yeah, it's true. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. That's a good point.
When I first got that Moonlight, one of the last one in the series with an S plat on it. When I got it, I didn't know anything about S plat, and I thought it just said splat.
Right.
I thought it was a sort of a comment about
onomatopoeia. Yeah,
onomatopoeia that was lying flat on the pavement, and it was splat.
Who's S Pat then? I didn't know that.
It was an artist. It was very hot in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not bad, but he could have fit right into image. Hey, I'm gonna put this book into use today too.
It's insult, abuse, and insinuating classical Latin. Okay.
Well, you'll be the only one who understands it. Probably you and JM might understand it.
I have to dig out my book of Shakespearean insults one time. I've got it's like a flip book, and you can flip the different pages over to get like a free-fold insult, and you can mix it up by turning a different part of the page. So I'll have to use that one time.
Make a petita.
Okay.
My American slang, which is more like mueca petita. Dirty slut.
Okay, that's Latin, is it?
Yeah. It's how to insult people in Latin.
Interesting.
And then if I need to verify anything, I got Latin
Gosh.
around here. And
Fair enough. I've got... The strangest book I've got is the Book of Unusual Sexual Practices, Encyclopedia of Sexual Perversion or something like that. I've got a book of that upstairs.
In the bedside cabinet.
No, I've got the illustrated Bible as well, the comic Bible. I'm not sure it's the same one that you keep showing the artwork of. It's like it's a hardback book. I used to actually be in a Christian metal band.
Oddest book I have in here.
Nuclear Proliferation Fact Book. Okay.
Well,
from
they
the U.S. Senate. So,
and I borrowed it off of the keyboardist, and she moved away, and I didn't get to give it back to her. I've never actually looked at it, so.
Sorry, was this the illustrated Bible or the unusual sex?
No,
book?
the illustrated Bible. If it was if she'd given me the sex book to read, I would have been like, oh, well, my chances are on here. She was looking to convert me, not pervert me.
So I'm going to pull an Andy Kaufman here.
Unfortunate, Gray. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm going to pull an Andy Kaufman here and read Green Pastures in Piccadilly by William Black.
Sounds like you like.
Yeah, that's what sits around me. Or
You're not putting any toilet readers. Yes, I read on the toilet.
I read on the toilet all the time.
I think they mean these.
I try not to take any valuable books in there, but you know.
The Big John's bathroom readers. These are actually British, but they're about history.
Okay.
The Mystery of Mary Celeste. They're history books, but yes, I have bathroom readers sitting right next to me.
That's an American thing, I think. We don't think we have those in the UK.
Those are UK books.
Are they?
Those are literally UK books. That is literally Magpie Books London.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
Those are British books. Another good book. Shamrock and Spear by Carl Pilkington. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
It's by F.A. Pilkington.
Okay. Well, no idea.
I'm surprised people don't say, I'm surprised people don't, F.M. Pilkington. I'm surprised people don't say I look like Carl Pilkington, but.
You do look like Carl Pilkington.
Yeah, if I get kind of monkey, I kind of go down that road.
Maybe. Oh, he keeps his far sides in the loo for browsing.
Oh, that's a good thing to keep in the loo.
This is completely out of there. But at one point, me and my brother was trying to write a stupid humorous book, and then we had this. This is the guy had actually he was sitting on a toilet, and for some reason there was a Gwimra in the toilet, and he reads the toilet, and he gets his backside possessed by a demon. that was good. That was part of the story that we were writing. It was very silly, but he just remembered it now. Talking about reading in the toilet.
Well, that is one of the dangers, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It was a very silly story, but then I made lots of it up, so yeah, it had to be silly. But I was too lazy to ever actually finish it, as I am with most things. There you go.
Well, it sounds like
hello, someone in the back.
Hello,
someone's trying to come in, but all we've got is a white screen at the moment.
All right.
Hold on. Oh.
Do we have someone with us?
I think there might be some lagging problems.
Look at that.
Hello.
Hey
guys. Can everyone hear me okay?
Oh yeah, perfectly, yeah.
Absolutely, sir.
Thanks for coming.
Excellent. Oh, pleasure. Who
wants to start?
Wow.
How's your day been? You had a good day so far?
Yeah. It's a beautiful day here where I live, and basically just spent the day writing, but that's what I do, so that's okay.
I'm going to gush for about 10 seconds and then I'll stop. But wow, thank you. Thank you, Jay.
Oh, my pleasure.
This is beyond cool to me. So, all right, guys, you can take over. I just had to gush for a minute.
So do you want to talk about your most recent project, or want to talk about go into a bit of history first?
Whatever you want to do, I'll roll with it. How's that?
All right.
So perfect.
Okay. How did
we
it get
wrap
started?
up with the new stuff and let's just talk
Okay.
stuff. So, I would hog everything if I get to talk, and everybody knows that. So I'm going to deflect to Mark up in the corner, WM up there. If you haven't noticed, we did a little homage with our names here. The guys thought, you know,
That's very funny.
We have a Silver Knight Kyle or whatever, so we all initialed it for you here to join right in. But
that's great. That's great.
I'm going to hit you up with some old questions, some of which I already have answers to from talking to you over the years. And then, of course, I'm going to bend your ear about the Defenders. But Mark's got some questions going for you, and I'm going to sit back and just enjoy the ride for a few.
I'm going to ask I've got some questions about some old stuff, and I've got some questions about the new stuff as well. So I'm going to start.
That works perfectly. So the problem sometimes is that people want to talk about my career and they start like in 1980.
Yeah,
and you know, an hour goes by and we're at 1982.
Yeah, I did see an interview like that where you said, "Look, if this carries on, we're going to be here 5 hours."
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with the new stuff because it's.
We go back to 1980.
Wow.
Yeah, he said Kyle showed this book and he said, "This is JM's first work." I said, "It's a coloring book. It can't have been that difficult to write."
I wrote it in a night. and let me tell you something. I was thrilled to have the work.
Yeah.
I think it was the first Batman story I ever wrote. Paul Levitz, who also edited that story.
Kyle said it hit his educational level. So you know.
All right, let's hear your question.
Okay, sorry. So that you're starting a new comic book line at the age. Well, you're 5 years older than me, and I've retired. So that's pretty impressive. So what drives you to do that?
What drives me to do this specifically, or what drives me to keep going, period?
Well, both, I think.
Yeah, both.
Well, all right. I'll give you the general answer first, and then we'll zero in on the Kickstarter specifically. The Kickstarter, by the way, ends tomorrow at noon.
It does.
So anyone out there that hasn't come along to join us, this is the last gasp. So come on, help us get over the finish line here. Well, we actually crossed our initial finish line the first day in 6 hours.
Yeah.
But because we have a whole line of books that we want to continue, the more the merrier. Let's put it that way.
The link is down below.
So, thank you. So, why do I keep going? Because I'm a writer, and I people pay me to make things up. And if they didn't pay me, I'd still be laying around making up stories anyway.
Yeah.
Happily, they still pay me. And I keep writing because I love it, basically. That's really what it comes down to. I just love it. You know, it's the same. I always say it's the same thing as when you're a little kid. When I was a kid, I spent a good part of my childhood laying on the floor, drawing pictures, you know, or making my own comic books and stapling together, or writing short stories, or playing the guitar and writing songs. It's just, if you're creative, that's what you do. Yeah. And why would you stop?
I saw an interview with John Buscema, and he said exactly the same thing about drawing. He just says, "I'll draw. It doesn't matter if anybody's not paying me. I'll just draw what I want to draw."
Yeah, and the truth is, when I'm in the middle of a story, when I'm working and my brain is totally engaged in that story, I'm not thinking about when am I getting paid for this story, or when is it going to be published, or will anyone publish? All you're thinking about is the magic of that interaction with the story. Yeah. And so you keep doing it.
Yeah.
I got to give you one more kudos while I'm leaning back here, because it's gnawing at my head, and I'm a writer too. But a writer writes, but an extraordinary writer writes extraordinarily, and you, sir, extraordinary. So
bless you, my son.
I kid you not. I mean, this is a Mount Olympus moment for me, because I don't get starstruck. I rub elbows with presidents, rock stars, and all kind of things like that. And my list of people who profoundly affected me, I actually have done a story on the channel here about how this issue profoundly affected me since 1980.
Wow.
So anybody wants to go back and look at that, including you, I've talked about how this issue in itself profoundly affected me when I was 13. And I can never thank you enough. And I probably thank you 1,000 times through links and on things over the years. But this is extraordinary. And this is when they handed you the book.
Yeah, that was my first issue.
And it's extraordinary. I mean, this puts so many other writers to shame, and you're an up and comer when it happens. So no wonder I've been a fan for so long.
Wow.
You gotta
You
get
know, well,
and I'm gonna back out with mine. I'll
okay.
come back.
I just want to say before we get off that one, you know, I can't look at my early work objectively. So often when I look at it, all I see is how far I had to go to get where I needed to be. I see the flaws jump out at me. So that you can look at that story, which is like, yeah, my first issue of the Defenders, I just, you know, started at Marvel. And then if that story had such an impact and still does, that's a great thing. So thank you.
I mean, it's a 6-issue run. They kind of had the ideas seeded and whatever like that, and plots and whatever. But this is part of a 6-issue story. But this is still a standalone book that to date I still recommend to people. I'm like, even if you don't finish the rest of the story, this is a standalone tome. I put this up with Dante.
Kyle, ask a question, mate. Ask a question.
So I've asked all the questions.
Okay,
that's just me saying.
Well, I thank you for
everybody. That. And this was 42 years ago, and he's still that good of a writer. That's why I say extraordinary. Because if you could do this 42 years ago, and affect me as a 32-year-old kid, and you still do it. I'm not just here to sing your praises. I'm here to say, buy these books. Invest.
If you don't ask a question, I'm going to mute you, mate. Seriously. We're
going back to Mark. But
right.
So it happened. That happened right there. So
the Kickstarter, which I as you say, it's got about 24. I went onto it yesterday actually.
Right.
I did sign up because I wanted.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Because there was an offer for Tom Mandrake free sketch. Oh, not free sketch, but if you
as a bonus,
one of the rewards. So I signed up for that. So
that's
I
great.
would say to anybody, go now because it's going to close shortly, and there's some great offers on there.
Yeah, noon tomorrow. In fact, one of the things someone canceled, so we've brought this reward back. You get to talk to me on 25 minutes on Zoom, one-on-one. So that's one of the rewards. You guys don't have to do that because you have. Anyway, let's talk about the Kickstarter.
Yeah, find out more about the. I've got a little picture here.
So your question is why? You know, why are we doing it? Yeah. And it goes in with the other question that I just answered. You know, I'm always developing original ideas. You know, and going back to the 80s, I was always bouncing back and forth between the Marvel and DC characters and original material, starting with, I guess, with Moonshadow at Epic back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always developing ideas. I'm always looking for new venues for these ideas. And one of the things that always fascinated me was Kickstarter. And because I love the fact that it's reaching the audience directly. You know, there's no wall between you and the audience. You go on the ride with them, they go on the ride with you. And that's really fascinating to me. The problem that I always saw was not the creative work, but all the other work that goes into preparing, running, maintaining that Kickstarter. Just thinking about it was exhausting. You know?
Sure.
So I have a friend named David Baldy. He's a TV writer and a producer. And we got to talking one day and talking about Kickstarters. And he was like, well, I'll be your partner in this. You know, I'll do the lifting over here. You do the lifting over there. We'll put ourselves together and we'll run this thing. And I thought, that's great. So we started talking about ideas. Well, like I said, I have a lot of ideas. So I pitched him 4 or 5 things right off the bat. And he said, well, why don't we do 4? Let's do 4 of them. So in my mind, we were going to pick one and do like a 5-issue miniseries, kickstart that, put that out. David's idea was, and it's a very TV idea, was to put out 4 pilots, 4 first issues, launching 4 new series in 4 different genres, 4 different styles with 4 different artists who also work in different genres and styles. And that's what we ended up doing, and started half jokingly calling it the DeMatteis. And then the name kind of stuck. And we went, that's pretty cool. Let's call it that. So, and David then built this imprint, Spellbound Comics, around that. And I reached out to all these wonderful artists. We both did, and they came aboard. And the next thing we knew, I'm just swimming in all these new projects. And the exciting thing is to get them all out in the world at once. And then this past week, we threw in as a bonus a 5th project that I was working on the side anyway. And we thought, Well, for everyone who came along, let's just throw that in. It's not going to be in the collected edition. It's just a special bonus.
Mhm.
And so now we've got 5 new series, and it's really, really exciting. Really exciting. It's one of the most exciting things I've ever been involved in. Let me close
I think it's 5 times oversubscribed, which is great.
I'm sorry, say that again. I missed that.
Something like 4 or 5 times oversubscribed, which is great.
Yes. Well, we set the goal intentionally low in the beginning. We wanted to meet that, so anyone who came along on this ride knew once we hit that goal, you're getting your books. They're coming. Yeah. It's not one of these things where you're going to be waiting years, or oh my God, you're not funded, and you spent 30 days and they're waiting and there's no books.
Yeah,
these books are basically almost all done. When we're going to wrap up a couple of little things, proof the lettering, a couple of pages of coloring here and there, and that's it. They're all done. Then we just have to put the collected edition together. And then, however long it takes to go off across the world to the printer, because all these printers are like in Korea and stuff. And then hopefully by early spring, everyone will have their books.
Yeah.
I know it's not cool to ask people what their favorite child is, but of those 5 new titles, what's your favorite of them? Which one which have you got?
Someone else asked me that, and and this is an honest answer. Whichever one I'm thinking about at the moment is my favorite, because I know all these are really, really big stories. I know where they're all going. So I'm not just looking at these first issues. I'm projecting ahead to all these epic stories that might be 2 or 3 5-issue minis by the time we're done telling these stories, So it's whichever one I'm working with at the moment, or whichever artwork I'm looking at, If it's, oh, look, this great Tom Mandrake artwork. Oh, this must be my favorite today. Oh, look at this great Sean McManus artwork. So we've got Sean McManus, Tom Mandrake, Matthew Dow Smith, David Baldion doing the art on the 4 main books. On the 5th bonus book of Vasilis Godzilis, who's a wonderful, wonderful artist that I've worked with before from Greece. I hope more people get to know him, because he's one of the most talented humans I've ever worked with. And then we've got Liam Sharp doing the cover for the collected edition. Liam, who he and I worked on Man-Thing together in the 90s, and he's just an extraordinary artist. And then for our alternate covers, we have Kevin McGuire. Let's see if I get this right. Dustin Yen, Kent Williams, and who am I forgetting? Dang, I know there's another one, and I'm drawing a blank. All right, Godsend is Kent Williams. Oh, J.H. Williams III. J.H. Williams III, extraordinary.
It's fantastic. Yeah,
Promethea and so many other wonderful things. It's just one of my favorite artists. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Yeah. It's hard to contain all this in my head, especially after a month of this. It's like I have very few brain cells left, so I hope I make coherent sense.
Okay, can I just ask you a question? If this isn't private, I don't know how private, but how are you? I mean, so with the artists, are they coming on for a bit of royalty, or are you paying them a fee? Or
we are all, I'm not going to get into the behind the scenes business, but we are all considered co-creators on this. My philosophy is, doesn't matter if I've had an idea in my head for 20 years. This is a comic book. Until those pictures come alive on the page, it is not complete. And if I had 10 different artists coming toward the same project, it would look completely different with each of them. So each one of these artists is bringing so much through their visual interpretations of my stories that I can't separate the two. Doesn't matter how long I've had it in my head. Once we create the comic, we're partners, and that's the way it is going forward.
That's great. I think that's exactly right. Yeah.
You mentioned Liam Sharp there, and I'm acquainted with Liam Sharp, and he'll be on here one of these days soon when life slows down a little bit for him. And
fantastic artist.
Next week
and
we
great
got
guy.
Tom Mandrake because of you. I mean, I put the feeler out there, but my connection to get in touch with Tom Mandrake is sitting right here with us. So,
have you got a favorite artist you've worked with over the years? The one
that's worse than that.
That's these favorite questions are really tough, because if you look at the list of guys that I've worked with, I have worked with just this extraordinary array of incredible talent. How do you choose? Just look at these guys that I just mentioned just for this one thing.
Yeah.
How do you pick one of them and say that guy's my favorite?
Then one of the other artists you worked with, my friend Hillary Varda, whose first professional inking job was on.
That's right, over Don Perlin on Defenders.
And Hillary was our first guest on the first show we did here, because first favor I called in and opened worms and said, "Well, who do we want?" I was like, "Damn DeMatteis." So,
is there a thread connecting the 4 different series in your new multiverse?
Everybody thinks because it's comics that it's all interconnected, and it's not. It's a multiverse because it's 4 different series existing in 4 different universes, parallel universes. Not and I said, you know what? If these are the biggest success in history, and we go ahead and we continue to put this out there, well, I'm a writer. I could come up with a story that will get them all to cross over. but that's not the plan right now. The plan is to get these books out into the world and then continue them. And I have to mention something really, really important. Anyone that supports all 4 books, the 4 main books, or buys the collected edition, gets to vote on which of the 4 is the first that we will continue to full series. So that's another way to reach out to the audience and get them directly involved, because they get to say, hey, this is what you're doing next, whether you like it or not,
Yeah.
But I'll like it. No matter what answer they come up with, I'm going to like it. So it's okay.
Cool. That's awesome.
And these come out with so if you subscribe to the Kickstarter, you'll get your comics in March, April next year.
Yeah, I would think, barring any problems with printing, paper shortages, or that stuff, I would think, let's say April. David Baldy, who's running the Spellbound arm of this thing, would have a clearer idea. But everything I'm hearing, we're talking about early spring.
So David is doing all the organizing the printers and all that.
Yes. That gets into the realm where my brain just, I always say I'm all right brain. I have no left brain whatsoever.
And so he's dealing with the distribution and all that.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, it's really interesting. I think that's
some questions in the chat as well. Have you got any sort of memories from Craven's Last Hunt when you was working on that? How that came about? What was the gem of the idea that started rolling?
Sure. I'll answer this, and I want to just dial back and at least tell you a little bit about each of these series, but I'm happy to answer any.
Cool.
Craven, it's an interesting thing. I keep saying it's like, I create a story, or an artist and I create a story, and then we release it into the wild, and once it's released, it almost has nothing to do with us anymore. And the audience makes a choice about that story. I've had stories that I've really, really loved that I think, wow, this is some of the best work I've ever done. And it goes out and people don't notice it, or maybe they don't notice it. And I've literally seen this 10 years later, people start to go, oh, that was really good. And then other times something goes out there and it just clicks in a way that I can't fathom. And Craven's Last Hunt really was like that. One of those stories that just went out there. I'm very proud of the story, but I have to be honest. There are other stories that I've written that are just as good, I think, or a few that I think are even better. But Craven, there's some magical chemical reaction that happened between me and Mike Zeck and Bob McLeod and Spider-Man. And people just took that story into their hearts. And the amazing thing all these years later is that people are still discovering it for the first time. I go to a convention and someone walks up, or on Twitter, hey, I just read this last week for the first time. And they keep reprinting it over and over and over again and sending me checks. So that's very nice too,
Oh, yeah.
And if I want to focus on the best thing about it, it's just working with Mike Zeck. Mike and I worked together he was on for, I guess, 2 of my 3-year run on Captain America. That's when we first and that was what really helped us with Craven, because we had 2 years to develop a creative chemistry and get to know each other. And once a writer and artist really get to know each other, you're not thinking about it the same way. It becomes intuitive, and you just start to understand each other. Mike is also, he's an incredible visual storyteller. In comics, as you guys, I'm sure know, you can be the greatest artist in the world. You could be Van Gogh, but if you can't tell a story visually from panel to panel, it ain't the job for you. Doesn't matter how brilliant you are, and we've all seen comics where the visual storytelling is off, and the drawing may be just great, but something is just stiff and awkward, or the flow between panels. Yeah. Well, Mike draws incredibly well, but also his panel to panel visual storytelling. So I hand him, Craven was written plot first. So I write a very detailed plot, breaking the story down page by page. And then Mike draws it and I get the work back, and I dialogue it from his finished art. So with Mike, everything that I'm asking for in my plot, so much of it is right there in the drawings. Every emotion that I want, the clarity of action. Sometimes when you work in that fashion where it's plot first, you get art back, and I'm looking at it and I have no clue what's happening on the page, and I wrote it. So I have to write these, these anguished balloons that are explaining when you read a comic book and it's sort of like, oh, he pushed me and I'm falling off the roof, because somewhere along the line the artist didn't do his job, and the writer has to overcompensate with clunky dialogue to explain what's in the pictures, you know. And I'm sure that artists have their list of complaints with writers too, so I'm not laying anything on artists. Just, you know, but when you're working with Mike, all the level one emotions are there. All the story is really, really clear. So if you read Craven's Last Hunt, 90% of that is all interior monologue. It's all getting in the characters' heads and going to level 2, 3, 4, 5 down in their psyches, because I don't have to explain what's going on in the pictures because it's crystal clear. I don't have to say, oh, look, that character's angry, because it's right there on his face. Oh, look, Peter's afraid, or Mary Jane is worried. It's right there. I can drill into their heads and go deeper and deeper. If someone else had drawn that story, I might not have been able to do that. And that goes back to what I was saying before about the artist as the co-creator. Doesn't matter that I came up with the story.
I think that's absolutely right. I think all the great comics are where the artist and the writer are in sync, you know.
Yeah.
And you can feel it, you know, that they're producing a joint piece of art, and they've you know, they're like that. And
it's like a mind meld that happens.
Yes.
You know, Keith Giffen and I, you know, our minds melded years ago, and I can't unstick them. You know, and sometimes the opposite happens. I've seen stories where I think I've written a very good script. The artist has done a wonderful job with the art, and somehow when you put it together, it's flat. I don't know why. There's no explanation. It's just creative chemistry. That's all it is. It's just chemistry.
Do you want to talk about your multiverse again? You said you wanted to go over the characters.
Oh yeah, let's go. I'll just, you know, let's just go over. I'll give you a little bit about each of the stories, just so the people out, you and the people out there know what it's about. Little teaser, yeah, exactly. So the first one is called Layla in the Lands of After. That's the one that's done by Sean McManus with an alternate cover by J.H. Williams III. The main character is Layla. She's a 13-year-old girl. She's biking home from her friend's house one chilly October night, a very Ray Bradbury kind of night. All the leaves are turning and the wind is blowing. And she's suddenly enveloped in this ball of light and carried up into the air and swept away to this extraordinary, wondrous, magical land. That is this Oz? Is this Wonderland? Is this Neverland? Well, she's just amazed until this cat comes trotting up to her, and she realizes that this is her cat who died like 5 years before. And then this old man appears, and she realizes that's her grandfather. He's dead too. And then they inform her, well, so are you, because that light that enveloped her was the light of the car that ran her down.
Oh, gosh.
And this isn't Oz or Wonderland. This is the afterlife. But Layla says, you know, I'm only 13. I refuse to be dead. So along with her grandfather and her cat and a character called the Not Quite Fallen Angel, they're going to try to get Layla back as they journey through the lands of after, try to get her back before this window of opportunity closes. Will she get back? Won't she? Read and find out. Actually, you won't find out in the first issue. So, but you'll get a lot of other fun stuff in there. And I call it the lands of after because my concept is that that the afterlife is composed of mind and imagination. So everyone gets the afterlife that they expect. You know, every spiritual tradition, or if you don't have a spiritual tradition, everyone has a conception of what's on the other side. And that's exactly when you create what you create when you get there. And then other lands beyond that. So they're traveling through multiple landscapes as they go on this journey to try to get her home.
I think there's a bit of I think that sounds a bit moon shadowy.
Yeah, a bit, maybe it's also got, well, so did Moonshadow. I guess it has some whimsy to it, but it's also got some, you know, some gravitas to it as well. It's that combination. And also I envision this one, because it's got that magical land motif, as sort of an all ages thing. When I say all ages, I don't mean kids comic. I mean something that a parent can sit down and read with their child, and the parent can enjoy it. You know, when I was reading these books with, you know, when I was reading books with my kids when they were growing up, whether it was Oz or Narnia or whatever it was, I loved it as much as they did, and we each got something different out of it. Okay, so I'm hoping that this is the way that this one plays out.
Yeah, you can't do that with Moonshadow.
No, you absolutely can't. You get in trouble. By the way, Dark Horse put out a wonderful new edition of Moonshadow, beautiful hardcover, 2019. The most beautiful edition of that book ever, and we're going to be reprinting that in an even more special way coming up next year. So,
wow,
I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. So let's move on to the other one. So I'll get through these so you can ask me any other questions you want to ask me. The next one is called Wisdom. That's the Tom Mandrake one with an alternate cover by Dustin Yen. And every time I say his name, I'm afraid I'm saying it wrong, which is I guess a karmic payback for all the people that say my name wrong. I don't know. Well, I don't know why am I getting the karmic payback for that?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Anyway, it's a supernatural Western. My one-liner on this one is Deadwood meets the Lord of the Rings. So on one level, it's a very sort of gritty, realistic Western. On the other, it's a big, big, epic fantasy about one man who makes this journey from being a pampered son of a rich businessman in upstate New York. The father dies, his business collapsed. The son and his wife, he has dreams of being an actor. The problem is he's a terrible actor. Long story short, they move west in the days of the West, when it was really the West. And tragedy happens when his house burns down. He finds his house on fire. His wife and infant are inside, and he sees these shadowy riders riding away, ghostly riders. We don't know where they came. Not Ghost Rider, ghostly riders. Anyway, this begins a series of events that turn him first into a savage, wanted killer, and then ultimately a sorcerer tasked with protecting the world from this great darkness that's coming. And along with protecting the world, he discovers that his wife and child are still alive and they've been taken by this darkness. And he has to get them back and hopefully redeem them while he's saving the world. And, Tom Mandrake, fantastic work on the supernatural. Who does supernatural better than Tom Mandrake? And he does Westerns like nobody's business, And I should back up, same thing for Sean. I mean, Sean McManus worked with Neil Gaiman on Sandman, with Alan Moore on Swamp Thing. He and I did 2 years of Dr. Fate together. His ability to visualize and create a completely new fantasy world is just off the charts, So again, who's my favorite artist? Every one of these guys, I look at, when the art comes through, when I get an email and there's like new art pages there, that's the best part of making comics. That's when I feel like I'm 10 years old on my living room floor, opening a comic, turning the pages, and my mind just expands and then explodes,
Do the artists ever ring you up and say, I've got your stuff here, JM, but can you just explain it? Can you help me a bit? Do they ever do that? Or do they just sort of take
sometimes, I've worked with certain artists who are not that the others don't think about the story. They're clearly thinking about the story, but I've worked with a few guys who think about it almost more than I do.
Yeah.
I worked with Michael Zulli a bunch, and Michael used to call me up. We worked on a series. He did an arc for a series, a Vertigo series called Secrets into the Mystery. Mm-hmm. And he would call me up and we'd be on the phone for an hour having these profound philosophical conversations because he really wanted to understand what I was getting at. Years ago, the late Seth Fisher, we did a graphic novel for DC called Will World. And he too, he wanted to understand everything I was thinking and feeling and what were the philosophical underpinnings of this and that. And the truth is, sometimes when I'm in the act of creation, I don't know, because my process is getting myself out of the way and opening up that little door in the back of my head that leads to my unconscious and letting it come out, and then later you go, oh, look at that theme. Look what that was about. I forget what story. I was thinking about some story of mine. All right, because we announced Kent Williams the other day as one of our alternate covers, and Kent and I did a series for a Vertigo series called Blood a Tale years ago, and I started thinking about it, and suddenly I went like this. I only did it in 1980. The original version was for Epic in 1987, and the other day I went, oh, that's what that was about. I just realized, you know what I mean? What in my life impacted a certain part of that story, and in all these years I had never realized it. So the stories continue to unfold through the years, So anyway, that's the general gist of Wisdom.
Yep.
The next one is Any Man, which is on the surface, at least, the most traditional it feels like a traditional superhero on the surface. The artist for that is a guy named David Baldion. We just did a series for Marvel recently called Ben Reilly Spider-Man, and just another fantastic artist with the ability to do all the big action you need in a superhero story, but all the quiet, intimate, emotional moments that you want. Oh wait, I'm just looking at this question. I was recently told I need to be a lot more specific. Oh yeah, I am very specific. If you look at my plots, first of all, I work in both. Two of these projects were done full script. 2 of them were done plot first. But my plots are incredibly detailed, page by page, panel by panel, camera angles, the whole thing. But I often say to the artist, look, I write it this way because this is how I see it. If you see a different way, if you think there's a better way to tell this visually, go ahead, as long as you are not violating the essence of my story, But I have to write it that way because I see it in a very, very specific way. So yeah, you really need to be clear because, especially like what I've seen happen, and I see we're getting sidebarred, but that's okay. I've had situations where the story goes off to an artist in South America who doesn't speak English, and it gets translated by somebody else, and as it goes through the chain, the descriptions break down and I get something back that I didn't expect. And sometimes just, I think something's clear in a script and the way the artist reads it is something different. And sometimes it's my fault. I wasn't clear enough. And sometimes they're just reading it a different way. So be as clear as possible with your writing. Be as it's a visual meeting. You have to think visually, and you have to put that visual quality on the page. Because if you can't write visually, then this is just, the same way if an artist can't tell a story, even if he's a great artist, it's not the medium for him. If a writer can't think visually, if you can't see those visions in your head and get them on paper, then it's the wrong business for you, So anyway, back to Any Man, now that I digressed. So Any Man is a big story. It takes place over the course of about 50 years. It starts in 1969 in New York City. A portal opens in Times Square, and this costume figure comes through, who says that he is literally from millions of years in the past. He is the lone survivor of a utopian civilization, a perfect golden age. But his people, they reached too high. Their hubris was too great, and they brought this entire civilization crashing down on them. He has now come to our civilization at the end of the 60s, which he says, this is your crisis point, and I am here to prevent the same thing that happened to my people from happening to you. The world welcomes him. They name him Any Man. He's a global hero looked up to in every corner of the globe. The only problem is that entire story that he's told us is a complete fabrication. He's lying. So the question becomes, who is he? Why is he here? Who created him? What's the agenda? And that's just the first twist. And there's a twist under that and a twist under that. And that's Any Man.
That sounds good.
Sounds interesting.
And the last one, what is the last one? Oh, Godsend. Okay. The great thing about this title is I call it Godsend, and the artist Matthew Dow Smith, he reads it as God's End. And I realized after the fact that both titles actually apply to this story.
Both work.
Yeah. And so I was unconsciously brilliant without realizing it.
Are you familiar with the old TV series with Skeet Ulrich called Miracles?
What's it called?
Miracles with
No.
Skeet Ulrich. It only went for I think it was 2 half seasons. But the premise to that was when people had visions, some saw God is now here, and other ones had it crammed together and it said God is nowhere.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I love things that have that double meaning.
Brilliant.
It's fantastic.
Like
And now I have to dig that show up. Is that streaming anywhere?
Not that I know of. I've got the DVDs of it, but it's a brilliant show that just got pushed by the wayside. But it's all metaphysics and things like that.
Oh, that sounds like I would love it. Yeah,
Which we're going to come back to. I'm not stealing Mark's question, but keep this.
Okay. So Godsend. Once we're done with Godsend, we can talk about anything you guys want to talk about. So Godsend, the main character, his name is Eric Small. He's in his mid-late 30s. He's a depressed, overweight, very sad character. He teaches junior high school. What could be worse than teaching junior high school? If you remember what junior high school is like, my poor teachers in junior high school, God. And he had a very, very painful, dysfunctional childhood. He's got like one friend. He's got a woman at school that he's crazy about and can hardly move his mouth to talk to her. Into his life and into this world drops this blue-skinned celestial figure. My one-liner on this is Kirby Gods meets The Matrix meets Philip K. Dick. So so he becomes not just Eric, but many people become obsessed with this figure that the media calls Godsend. He seems to be a force for good in the world, but no one really knows. He could be here. He's a godlike being. He could be here to destroy us. We don't know. But Eric feels like there's something there that he needs to know, that he needs to understand, that almost Godsend has the answer to a question that he can't even articulate, but it's like the most important question in his life. And one day he's in his living room and this being appears, 7 feet tall, with the body of a turtle and the head of a man. And he says to Eric, "Get on my back." And Eric is like, "Well, I guess if a giant turtle asks me to get on his back, I'd better do it." You know, he gets on this turtle's back. The turtle moves through the wall, flies him out into the night. And this begins a series of events that shreds Eric's sense of personal identity and shreds his sense of reality itself. I love stories that are about who we think we are versus who we really are. What we take reality to be versus what may lie under the skin of reality, you know? So that's what Godsend, that's the start of Godsend, but it's another very big story. I envision this in my head as 3 5-issue miniseries, and I've got literally dozens of characters waiting to spring up out of this story as it goes along. And the art is by Matthew Dow Smith, a wonderful artist. We've done a couple of shorter stories together. We did a wonderful Star Trek story together and a Batman story, but this is the first time we've been able to do a big story together. And Matt is great. He's really good with mood and shadow, and he's fantastic with people, with emotions, with facial expressions, with the right gesture. Talking about storytelling, the right gesture at the right time. So like right now, I'm talking about Godsend. Well, this must be the best one, except the other 3 are also the best ones. So I still can't figure it out.
They all sound pretty good to me.
They're all
and the 5th bonus one, which I forgot about too, is called The Edward Gloom Mysteries, art by Vasilis Godzilis. And this gets my Universal Monster movie jam out, you know? And the main character is Edward Gloom. He's a monster cobbled together from the parts of a dozen different dead people, except long before this, Edward escaped from his creator, who is this mad woman. And he is not a monster. He is the most sensitive, brilliant soul you'd ever meet. He lives in his little underground home with his girlfriend, who happens to be a ghost, and a few other folks. And he writes symphonies, and he writes novels, and he writes books of philosophy and history and mathematics. And he sends them all out into the world under assumed names because he's afraid to go out in the world. So he's this shy, brilliant genius who also happens to be a grotesque monster. And what happens is he believed that his creator died some years before in a fire when he escaped her clutches. And we begin to see signs that she is indeed alive, and she's come to sow chaos across his city. So Edward and his team have to leave their little underground cocoon and go out in the world and do their best to stop her. So that's the premise of that one.
Interesting. I take it she's got an army of new monsters she's made as well, probably.
Exactly. Oh, there's a lot of monsters in this book. Yeah, the first issue, there's a symphony hall. I don't want to give too much away, but there's a symphony hall, and outside it's raining. But in every raindrop is a creature. When the raindrop hits the ground, these creatures grow, and by the time it's done, Symphony Hall is just a smoking crater. You know. So there's lots of, it's got a very Vass's art in this has a very sort of Bernie Wrightson, Mike Ploog feeling to it, which you need for something like this. Gee. We specifically with the coloring, I said, let's look at the old Ween Wrightson Swamp Thing. Let's go for that tone in the coloring, So my one-liner on this one is sort of Frankenstein meets Sherlock Holmes as written by Charles Dickens. So because it's got a very Victorian feeling too,
Well, the name, calling somebody Gloom is very Dickensian.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So now that's it. I'm done with the hype. Anyone out there who hasn't come along with us yet, we have till noon tomorrow. Please come along. It's really great stuff. I'm very proud of all these books, and you may ask what you'd like.
Okay, that turtle man. Is that from Indian? One of the Indian gods. A turtle is an aspect of him, isn't it? Is it?
Yeah, in Hinduism, yeah, there's the
Yeah.
turtle. The world rests on the back of this giant turtle. Yeah, and the turtle imagery runs through a lot of different mythologies, but specifically, I picked it up from Hindu mythology.
Did you do when you was doing your Dr. Fate? That was about Kali Yuga, wasn't it? Kali Yuga, was that your?
Yeah, we were dealing a lot with the concept of the Kali Yuga. Yeah,
yeah, that's what I learned. I learned that from reading that Dr. Fate.
Oh yeah, oh good.
Yeah,
I did my job.
I still remember it.
Yeah. You made us
that's
all
great.
smarter, whether you wanted to or not. We're all smarter.
And I'm not that smart. I don't know how I did it.
We've got a question here, while people are thinking about it. Someone's asking about. Did you have any other storylines that you wanted to explore with Ghost Rider? He's asking.
Oh, okay.
Or if you knew it was over and felt.
Yeah, well, the great thing about Ghost Rider, that was also very early in my career at Marvel, is that we had advance warning. The book was going to be canceled, and they gave us enough advance warning. I worked on that with Bob Budiansky. It's the first time I worked on a book with an artist who was actively co-plotting the book with me. So we used to get on the phone and talk for an hour and a half, and I'd go off and write the plot, and he'd draw it, and it was a great collaboration. But they warned us, months in advance that the book was going to be canceled. The joke is, if any book has those sales today, it'd be a bestseller. At Marvel in the 80s, if a book dipped below 100,000, it was like 90,000. It's like, I'll cancel that book. Now if you're selling 90,000, you're doing dances in the street. So no, there were no more stories to tell because we really got to complete the story, and it's a very rare thing. I also got to do that with Dr. Fate, because the great thing with Dr. Fate was I got to completely remake that character. It wasn't the Dr. Fate that existed before I got there. And then at the end, after Sean and I did, first Keith Giffen and I did a 4-issue mini, and Sean and I did 2 years. And at the end of those 2 years, we completed the story and those characters left the stage. So with mainstream comic books that go month after month after month, it's very rare that you get to tell a complete story with a beginning, a middle, and end. And with Ghost Rider and Dr. Fate, we got to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's good. Most of the time, they just finish in the middle of a story nowadays, don't they? Quite a lot of them.
Right. And it's the nature of the beast that those characters have to keep going and going and going and going. No matter how much I may want to send Bruce Wayne to therapy and have him hang up his Batman costume, it ain't going to work. He's got to be there next month fighting the bad guys.
So JM, so one of the stories you're talking about is about the afterlife. And I can see on your shelves behind you various religious iconography.
You are correct.
So are you a follower of one particular religion, or are you interested in all religions?
I don't follow any particular religion. I was actually raised in both the Jewish and Catholic tradition. One parent was Catholic, one parent was Jewish. But I would call myself spiritual and not religious. I have a spiritual master, an Indian spiritual master named Avatar Meher Baba, who I have been with since I'm 19 years old.
Wow.
But it's a very, very broad tent there, so you look behind me and you'll see Christian imagery and Hindu imagery. And because my personal experience, and certainly Meher Baba's point of view, is that when you get to the core of all these things, they're one thing. Different flavors on the outside, but when you get to the core, it's the same essence and the same truth. No matter how hard some people try to keep them separate, and make them fight between each other, the mystical core of all these traditions and paths and religions is the same. And that's been, sort of what's guided my life all these years. Yeah.
I believe that too. Yeah.
I lean over, there's a Kiddushan right there. The mystical Kiddushan.
All right.
One side, wow. The Tao Te Ching on the other side. All
That's
my
good.
tags from the Marine Corps said Taoist and Zen Buddhist. That was funny.
Oh, really? Oh, that's fantastic. Wow.
I've got another question. What's this? How do you determine where your research ends within scripts and the artist's research begins?
I try to include as much as I can. In the age of the internet, research is a very deep rabbit hole. And you can end up someplace that has nothing to do with your story by the time you're done. Something like Wisdom, where I'm researching the Old West, and oh, that, and then that go over here to read it, and down here, then over here, But the great thing is you can find all the visual reference that you want and need, even for comics. Very often you can, even if it's a 20-year-old story, you can probably find that image on the internet somewhere. So research is a lot of fun. And then the artists are going to do their own research, because no matter how much I may describe something, like I know, like Tom Mandrake was very, very clear about, the look of the Old West based on his own research. I sent him a lot of stuff to go with it, and he had his own research, and you put that together and you create a world. But research, research in the days of actually having to traipse to the library and look up old things on microfilm and that kind of stuff, not as much fun. Buying a book and reading about something, that was always fun. But the internet just opens that door. It's almost like you're going through a time portal or into another dimension. And the next thing you know, it's 2 hours later and you've got all this stuff. But you also don't want, how do I put this? You don't want the truth to impinge on a good story. So if you have to bend, if you want to have to bend history a little bit, to enrich your story, that's okay too, because we're not writing history, we're writing historical fiction.
There you go. Yeah, I can never give up the library. I still call my man cave my library. You can only see 3 or 4.
Oh! I'm not talking about library at home. I have books all over my house. So I
wish that we still had 10 libraries around here. I'd still prefer that over the internet, even though the internet, if I want to know something, punch 2 buttons and there it is right there at my fingertips. But I still would rather flip through an old book and lose day. But then life doesn't let you lose days anymore. So
yeah, if I past few years I've been reading more and more ebooks, not the least of which because I'm really mold sensitive. So if I want to read some old book of mine that I love that's been sitting on the shelf for 20 years, I get to page 10 and I'm breaking out in hives, So it's like, I'll read the ebook, But at the same time, sometimes I read a new book and I read it as an ebook and I love it. And it's like, I have to have the book. I have to have the tactile sensation now of holding that in my hand and putting it on my shelf. Because we all know the magic, sometimes just looking at your shelf. Forget even taking the books out. Just looking at all this stuff, there's something very magical about that. That's like the difference between a physical comic book and a digital comic book. Well, there are a lot of advantages to digital comics. But if you grew up in a world, like I always go back to that feeling, laying on the living room floor, paging through a comic. Or if I go, I have a closet full of my old comics and some of the old comics I've kept over the years, and that smell of the paper, that whole sensory interaction between you and the book is a really special thing.
Can I ask you a couple of questions about Moonshadow, which is
absolutely
one of my favorites.
One of mine too.
I can imagine.
No, seriously, if there are 2 or 3 projects of mine that I love so many things that I've worked on, but there are 2 or 3 that are so very special to me, and Moonshadow was one of them.
Yeah, I know it was a personal project of yours, and I heard the story about how you had it as a personal project, and Karen Berger said come to DC and we'll do it, and Jim Shooter said stay here, we'll do it for you as well. Did you have the artist in mind beforehand who you wanted to use, or
no?
Did you find the artist once Jim Shooter had said we're going to do it?
Yeah, it's funny that you've heard that Karen story, because what I remember, and she didn't even remember, is that she said there's this new British artist, Dave Gibbons. He'd be great for this. So I always think in some parallel universe there's a version of Moonshadow by me and Dave Gibbons. That's again talking about the chemistry between writer and artist. That is completely different. My original vision of Moonshadow in my head was a little sharper edges, a little more satirical, a little more Vonnegut almost. You know what I mean? A little more Sirens of Titan.
You guys Vonnegut would come up.
and so when I decided to stay at Marvel, and I went got passed over to Archie Goodwin at Epic Comics. And so I was sharing the outline for Moonshadow with my friend Dan Green, who's a wonderful artist, an inker and a painter. And I had this thought in the back of my head, one of these guys, in my area, especially in those days, there were a lot of artists that lived around here. I said, one of these guys that Dan knows is going to see this and want to get involved with this. John J. Muth, known as Dan, sees the moon shadow outline, and the next thing you know, John and I get together, and this is the beauty of it. And I've said this many times before. These stories have their own lives, their own needs. I think I'm in control. I'm not. And that story was looking for and waiting for John J. Muth to come along because he was the guy that had to bring it to life. And I still remember sitting in my living room the first time we met. He had read the thing. He did some sketches. And I said, oh, well, this is very Dickensian. He said, well, that's what you wrote. And I went, oh, you know what? You're right. I hadn't even realized that I was structuring this whole it was a Dickensian space opera, and he understood it better than I did, and so his art inspired me in the tone of the writing. My writing inspired him to do things in his art that he had never done before. And the chemistry between the two just built. And it was a special project because we lived nearby each other. A lot of times it goes off in the mail, in the days when where you send things in the mail or in the email now, but to work with an artist that each other, you live near each other. We would get together in a coffee shop. I'd bring my outline. He would be doing layouts on napkins in the coffee shop. That kind of, that kind of back and forth that was going on.
Oh,
and that's how
fly on that wall or have one.
How we created Moonshadow. Yeah. It was the same thing when I did Blood of Tale with Kent Williams. Kent and I literally lived next door to each other in the same little upstate New York apartment complex. So I could literally walk out my door and be at Kent's house in a minute. And we'd be running back and forth. Kent, I had this idea. Oh, look at this painting I just did. And back and forth and back and forth. And what an amazing, exhilarating, intoxicating way to create, Yeah. With the right collaborator.
I'd arm to have been a fly on the wall and to have some of those napkins. I literally would give my...
Those napkins are long gone.
Oh, my God.
Right. So the next question I have about Moonshadow is, was Ira based on a real person? And where does he get all his cigars from?
Ira the character was not really based on a real person, but I had a very close friend named Ira. And I just thought it was a hilarious idea to name an alien Ira. You know what I mean? It just seemed like the last name an alien would have. And so I remember someone else I knew who said, God, before I had read Moonshadow, before he ever met Ira, he said, I was afraid to meet him because of that guy in the comic. It's not the same guy. Don't worry. But I did name him after my friend Ira.
Okay. I'll bet he was really pleased.
Now to have a comic where Ira meets Slarty Bart Best. So.
I mean, Ira's sort of like a combination of animal from the Muppets, Chewbacca, and Gremlin. I mean, he's just fantastic.
Yeah, and a little bit of, I don't know if you remember the Addams Family, Cousin It, who was a
guy also. Yeah.
It's like an amalgam of all those furry guys, Yeah. Moonshadow was great because every once in a while you get the opportunity, and again, it wasn't conscious, but I created a structure for myself. And I'm going to back this up a minute. I read something years ago. I've tried to track down this quote for years. I can't find whoever said it, so I'm taking credit for it because I've changed it so much over the years anyway. But if anyone finds the real one, I'll happily give it back. It said something to the effect of whatever story you're working on in the moment, pour everything you are, everything you think, everything you feel, all your philosophy, all the themes that obsess you, pour it all into that story as if it's the only story you will ever write. And that's what I did with Moonshadow.
Yeah.
Everything I'd ever read, everything I'd ever lived, all came out through the filter of my consciousness and poured into that imaginary world that we created.
I mean, there's loads of literary stuff in there. The first issue stuff with Blake.
That does sound like something Vonnegut would say.
Okay, and the final question about Moonshadow is the IHOT, International House of Tart, hugely ahead of its time. You were the first person to use the IHOT. You should have sort of.
Why have other people done it?
No, but I think you used the, before iPad, you had iHot.
Okay. Well, it came from the International House of Pancakes is where it came from. And we just made it the International House of Tarts, which I thought was very funny. That was the other funny thing about Moonshadow, too, because some people, that was such a serious piece. And some of it was. but some of it was just absurdist, and that's what I loved about it. It gave me the room to do both, to take 3 pages and ponder some deep philosophical concept, and then turn around and do the silliest thing I could think of on the next 3 pages.
And how long had you been developing that in your mind before you?
That's a good question. For some years before that, I mean, I think I started playing with that idea before I ever worked in comics.
Yeah.
In my head originally, it was much more of a standard kind of comic book sci-fi fantasy thing. It was originally called Stardust, I think.
Yeah.
And then I just continued to, and in fact, if you look at the Dark Horse edition, I think I have the notes from when it was originally Stardust, when I was like, whatever, 19 years old or 20 years old or something. And then it just, as stories do, it evolves until it finds the right venue and the right collaborator. And then it springs out into the world and surprises the hell out of you. And that series, every issue was a discovery for me. Mm-hmm. Because as I've said before, I was at that point, I'm writing comics, I'm writing Marvel comics, and there's a certain mindset that goes with that. Not necessarily from the people you're working for, but in my own head, I'd created this this is what a comic book is. And by stepping outside of that and working on Moonshadow, I was free. And I sat down and I wrote that the same way I would write a novel, with no preconceived notions about anything, and just went with it, and being lucky enough to have an artist like John J. Muth. I mean, it was just.
And when you then did the Vertigo 10 years later, John did a whole new set of covers, yeah?
Yes, he did a whole new set of covers, and then we did the sequel, Farewell Moonshadow. Yeah. And the idea with that was, I had an idea for a sequel, but we didn't want to do it the same way. We didn't want to tell the story in the same way. We wanted to challenge ourselves. So I essentially wrote a prose piece, interrupted by, I think, 4 or 5 pieces that were just pure comics, visuals with no dialogue. And I wrote the prose piece, and then John would do a full page illustration to go with the page. And I wrote it page by page. So a page of prose, and John would do an illustration, page of prose. And I still think some of the best writing I've ever done, just in terms of the chiseled prose, is Farewell Moonshadow. I read that. Sometimes I read some of my old stuff and I go, oh my God, who wrote that? And then sometimes I read something like Farewell Moonshadow and go, oh my God, who wrote that? You know what I mean? It's like, that's pretty good. And I'm always shocked. That's really great. I can't believe it,
Have you got anything that you wrote in the past that you wish could be stricken from the books forevermore?
Yeah, I'm sure there are a few things out there that I would like to, but I learned a very important lesson, and I was taught this by the fans, especially at conventions, because I have certain books in my head where I go, oh God, I hope, why, like they announced some collected edition and there's some stories in there that's, oh God, why is that collected, And then someone comes up to me at a convention and says, this is the first comic I ever read. It means the world to me. So I make sure never to knock my work, or I may forget sometimes, but 99% of the time, I try not to knock my work, because that story I might not like might be someone else's favorite comic book. And like I said, once the story is released into the wild, it's not mine anymore.
Hands down in my book.
That's so interesting.
Someone's asked if you were influenced by underground comics at all.
Not wildly influenced, but there was a period when I was in high school where I really, really got into Zap comics, and especially R. Crumb. I had a very, very heavy R. Crumb phase, One of my favorite comic book stories of all time were made. One of my favorite stories of all time is a Crumb story. It's like a 3-page short called Meatball. Any of you guys are familiar with this?
If you showed it to me, I probably would recognize it.
It's called, you can look it up online. I think the whole story is out there somewhere. And it's ridiculous, but it's profound. It's about these meatballs that start falling out of the sky. And if you get hit in the head with this meatball, you get enlightenment, And when I was 17, I just thought this was the greatest story I'd ever read, But Crumb is amazing. I really loved Crumb back in the day.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
He had some interesting ideas of women, didn't he?
Yeah. And those guys, did the same thing. Well, here's what a comic book is. No, it isn't. Here's the dynamite. Let's light it and blow it up. Same thing as Steve Gerber did. That's one of the reasons why I love Steve Gerber. his work at Marvel in the 70s. It's like he came, he looked at all the great work that came before him, he bowed to it respectively, and he took out his dynamite and lit it and blew it all up. You know?
Yeah. Steve Gerber was great.
And it said to me as a reader,
so
yeah, it said to me as a reader, wow, this can be anything. Comics can be so much more. You know, we can just keep expanding and expanding and expanding.
A million miles an hour, or are we going to break into an Eric Idle song here?
That's right.
Comic book question. I got a comic question. And it's, you talk about your symbiotic relationship with Giffen, who calls you DeMatteis, and whatever the backstory is, that cracks me up. But Justice League.
Okay.
The one punch. Who do we blame? Who gets credit for the one punch? I'm a Marvel guy, and that still sticks with me to this day.
That was right there in Keith's plot. So I have to give, my job was to write the dialogue and goose it, and move it along there. But that, the one punch came out of Keith's fevered brain, and that has lived on for all these years.
Yeah, it has. Yeah,
it's like one of these moments.
Everybody appears to have gone other than me. Or maybe it's just me that's gone and the others are all.
Oh, no, we can hear you.
We can hear you, but you're frozen.
Smart.
Yeah,
surreal.
We can hear you.
You're frozen, but we can hear you.
Maybe I'm going to become.
There you go. There. Well, now you're moving slower, but you're there.
You're moving like this.
Can you hear us, Mark?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yes, I'm the only person that stayed on.
Two marks. No, we're still here.
We're all still
We're all here.
Kind of flipping through.
Or was it just me that disappeared?
Yeah. You don't seem to be moving either. I'm not sure if you're on the same sync with us. You seem to pop out and come back again.
No, you're okay now. You're okay now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But one day, and obviously this isn't the day, one day, I want to sit down with you, have you sign this, scribble all over it, whatever you feel like, while I take you around Indianapolis and to all the Vonnegut haunts. We can have some coffee. But one day. And like I said, you can watch a snippet on this show from a few weeks ago where I talked about the impact this had on me. If you're ever curious,
let's turn the question on you, and you don't have to explain everything, but just in a short bite, what is it about that story that got you?
Couldn't do it in a short bite. I could desperately try to do this in a short bite, but I'm a teenage kid. And of course, the hero of the moment is Kyle Richmond. My name is Kyle. I gravitate a little towards that. I like the Defenders because they're quirky. But here's all this big muscle trying to get through this heady stuff. I'm 13 and I'm reading about eternity parsing itself off to understand humanity. And I'm getting into it. And I'm a snot-nosed, wet behind the ears kid. And I understood that. So I'm like, oh, man. I mean, you got the cover going in and all these big guys and this big concept of eternity and everything that goes with that. And all these superhumans who are just utterly powerless against something so grand. And the one guy who doesn't even have his powers at the moment appeals to the humanity of the moment and saves the world.
That was a lot briefer than you told us the other day. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm going to have to reread that story.
That was mind-bending to a kid. And all
I can see,
later, there's no gray area. Somebody asked my favorite comic. Beginning, middle, and end. It's right here.
That's fantastic.
It's still that good.
We've got a question from someone in the chat as well about Teen Titans Go.
Oh, I did. I think I wrote 2 or 3 episodes of Teen Titans Go. Yeah, I've done tons of animation over the years. I did, I think, 3 episodes in Teen Titans Go.
Your resume is wow.
Is all your focus now going to be on the multiverse? Or have you got any other projects that we're on yet, like in the big tour or anything like that you're working on?
Oh yeah, well, just today, Spider-Man: The Lost Hunt came out from Marvel, which is sort of a sequel. That's a prequel to Craven's Last Hunt. It's both a sequel and a prequel. That's an interesting thing because it jumps back and forth in time.
Okay.
And it's a really fun story. I don't want to give too much away, but the Ben Reilly series that I did took place in that 90s era. And And this takes place at the same time. We're with Peter and Mary Jane in Portland. They're married. She's pregnant. Peter at that point in time had lost his powers. So it's a powerless Spider-Man. And this figure from his past, Gregor, who was Craven's right-hand man, shows up. He's been waiting for the right moment to get revenge because he blames Peter for the death of Sergei as well as Sergei's son Vladimir. So we have a powerless Peter against this tremendous threat, and we get to explore the idea of what makes a hero. Is it webs and sticking to walls, or is it who the person is? And then we introduce a third character who is connected to Craven's past, which opens the door to things about Craven's past that we've never heard before, that we never know before. So it's a really nice, like Craven, it almost feels, it's much more in some ways of a horror story than it is a superhero story. It's dark, it's kind of twisty and twisted, and it's a good story. We just lost him again.
Yeah, he's disappeared again.
He needs to pop out and pop back.
Yeah, that's what he should do, is pop out and pop in. And the other thing, I had a novella that just came out in June called The Excavator, which it's a supernatural thriller, a piece of prose that I'm very, very proud of, that you can get at Amazon either as an ebook or as a physical book. And I am right now, that's what I was working on today, working on a new novella that should be out next year, I hope, by the spring. Absolutely. So I'm going to continue to do prose, and I'm sure there's more animation in the future as well. So I like to mix it up. I like to do different things because it keeps me fresh.
Absolute renaissance.
There's no like one genre that like you love above all others.
One genre. That's interesting. I really do like playing with the supernatural. And I'm not talking about in-your-face horror. Like, I grew up on the Twilight Zone. I love that sort of, shadows and substance, that whole phrase. The idea that there is more. What we were talking about earlier in this here, that there's more to the world than what the surface level presents us. That as you peel away the skin of the world, there is magic, there are miracles, there are strange and wonderful things happening here. That the universe is a living, breathing thing that we interact with, and the more mystical stories, the more supernatural stories allow you to dive into that, and also to get more philosophical about it as well. That's why, I love the DC supernatural characters. I've written a lot of them. And a few years back, I was writing Phantom Stranger and Justice League Dark, and I was in heaven. Justice League Dark, you could pull in any supernatural character you wanted, any month, anytime, I love Doctor Strange at Marvel, So I do love those characters, but, I love this. I'm lucky in that I've worked in so many genres. I've done straight superhero stuff. I've done the funny stuff with Giffen. I've done autobiographical comics. I've done kid-friendly fantasy. I've done my own personal sort of metaphysical creator-owned comics. It's so, and not to mention, the TV and the movie stuff and the prose. So I consider myself very, very lucky that I've gotten
and the music. We've done the music.
Yeah, so you got an album out.
You got the album.
I had an album out 20 years ago. Yeah, but it's still out there. But it's still out there on Spotify and Apple Music, or it's on YouTube. It's called How Many Lifetimes, and it's basically rock and roll that deals with these spiritual themes that we've been talking about. About my lifetime with Meher Baba and exploring these issues and these questions, and but within the same thing, you can't write a philosophical treatise. You have to write a story. If I'm just lecturing you about something that I believe, that's, then I'll go write a philosophy book. I want to tell a good story about interesting characters. Same thing with music. Whatever the theme is, you want it to be engaging, and you want it to touch your mind and touch your heart. And I have to say, of all the creative things I've done in my life, that album is one of the most profoundly satisfying things I've ever done. And I've got stacks of songs that I've been waiting all these years to get back into the studio and finally record them. When I get back into the studio, it's going to have to be a double album, and that still won't cover all the songs that I have.
I want a physical album of that. I definitely want a physical album of that. The second one, but even the first one. Tell me you got spare copies on the back burner.
Of the first one?
Of the first one.
Yes, I do. And
I'm bad. I'm first in
line. You just let me know. Give me an address, and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I've got some members of Grateful Dead lined up who want to review it.
Well, you guys know everything.
Get in there.
Let's not get, you know, several people have asked me about that story recently. Let's skip that one for today.
That's how you do about it.
It's all good. Wow.
Talking about the supernatural characters, I do think DC have got much better supernatural characters than Marvel.
I think they have a deeper bench. Yeah, they do. I mean, the flip side of that is Marvel has a lot of supernatural characters floating around. They just haven't been exploited in the same way that DC has done it. You know, DC has done a great job with their supernatural characters. So I think you could probably do something similar with Marvel if they took the time. Actually, an artist and I, a couple of years ago, came up with a great framework for sort of, well, you know, it's a funny thing, talking about the Defenders, those early days of the Defenders, that was Justice League Dark, because it was all the supernatural characters coming together as a team to face supernatural threats, you know. And all those years later, I'm writing Justice League Dark, and I went, wait a minute, I think I created Justice League Dark in 1980. You know? And now I lost the thread of what I was trying to say. Oh, yeah, so this artist and I came up with a great framework with a bunch of, a combination of some of the established Marvel characters and some new characters, and a great artist, and we pitched it, and they didn't want to do it. So maybe that's not the arena they want to explore so deeply. But did you guys watch Werewolf by Night, the little 1 hour special? Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so much fun.
That's how to do it.
There's so many channels now. I can never find stuff. I haven't got like channels to watch things on. It's all confusing.
Yeah. No, it was like, you know, it took that classic Universal monster movie sensibility and had fun with it, and it really worked too. And to see Man-Thing come lumbering around, and that was just fantastic.
that was the best part.
Yeah. So I have about 10 more minutes, and then I have to run because it's dinner time around here.
Okay, can I just ask you another question? So you're obviously well read, and you've read a lot of the classical stuff. If you were born in a different era, who would you have been? Shakespeare, Dickens, H.P. Lovecraft?
That's really interesting.
Yes. I think the answer.
Well, you know, it's the funny thing, because the Edward Gloom Mysteries is sort of it's sort of like, you know, Mary Shelley meets Charles Dickens, you know. So I think I would have been around in Victorian London, writing in a very Dickensian style, but adding supernatural elements to the stories.
Okay, you may be Mary Shelley then.
Yeah, a bit of Mary Shelley and a little bit of Charles Dickens, and you know, no one told a story like and Charles Dickens. Look at A Christmas Carol. I mean, that is, you know, one of the great supernatural tales.
You could have been Arthur Conan Doyle, maybe.
Yeah. Right, in the periodicals, like the monthly books they used to do, like Conan Doyle did. Yeah.
Well, right, and that's what that's how Dickens put out his work, right? Just like comics, you know, people went every month and they bought the little pamphlet, and then they collected it together in a big book when he was done.
Yeah.
Here's a callback laugh for you. Pull my dog tags off the wall. I got to cover up the middle because it's got my social security number on it. But
I want to see that. Wow.
It's your religion, isn't it? Oh, Taoist. Okay.
That's great. That's great.
And the other one, they would either put Taoist or Zen Buddhist, and they're like, "How can you be a pacifist?"
They probably wouldn't know what to do with you if something did happen to you. They probably wouldn't have known a clue what to do with you.
I can pull off the dichotomy of mankind.
We've got a few older questions. It's kind of like there might be a bit cookie cutter, but someone asked, "You got a proudest moment of your career at all?"
Let me think. All right, you know, I don't know if it's the proudest moment, but one of my favorite moments was when I sold my first official comic book script to Paul Levitz at DC. I broke in back in the days of the anthology. You held up, you know, Weird War Tales. And the one that you held up was my first published story, but it wasn't the first story I sold. I sold a story to House of Mystery. And, you know, I'm just some working class kid from Brooklyn with dreams of being a writer, and spent months pitching stuff to Paul. And finally, I was up at the DC office and I pitched him a bunch more. He sent me home to write it, came back with the script, sent me home again to rewrite it, came back, went over it, shook my hand and said, "Welcome to the business."
Wow.
And that was, you know, what a fantastic moment. What an amazing moment that was.
Did you frame your first check, or did you spend it?
You know, funnily enough, the first check that I got was not really for a comic book. Technically, I sold something through a guy that I knew who worked at Marvel, who I knew from Brooklyn College. I sold a piece to Crazy Magazine. Do you remember Crazy Magazine? That was the first thing I ever sold, and I got a check with Spider-Man's face on it. It was like, oh my god, you know. But that didn't feel to me like I was in the comic book business yet. Not until I sold that story, a real honest to God comic book story to Paul Levitz.
What was it like when you got the actual issue with your story in? What, you're showing it to the whole family? And
yeah, and it's like, you know, so what am I showing to my family? House of Mystery and Weird War Tales, and they're probably thinking, what the hell is this? You know what I mean? You know, that stuff was, I call it, was the vaudeville of comics. It's where you started at the bottom rung and where you learned your craft, because you got to write 5, 6, 8-page stories within a very, very tight structure. And it was a fantastic way to learn how to be a comic book writer. It's great.
So, JM, have you got a room somewhere in your house where you've got a copy of all the comics that you've written?
They're all right. But see those binders behind me? I got a. There's more of them than what you see. Every single comic that I've ever done is in those binders.
Oh wow!
Oh, cool.
Wow!
How often do you go back and have a browse through them, or are they just literally there for?
Once in a while, you know, more often if it's something that's reprinted and they send me the reprint and I go, okay, and then I'm either like this, or I'm like this, you know, depending on the story.
Yeah.
There was 2 other questions that guy had.
There was, yeah. I was going to go back to them. If hardest obstacle you had to overcome for your career.
Well, just getting started, you know. I always say, you know, I teach writing classes sometimes, and I always say, no matter how successful a writer appears to you from the outside, the freelance life, the creative life in general, is always filled with rejection. You know, you could be at the top of your game, and all of a sudden there's a downturn, and there's 6 months or a year where you're not getting any work anymore. You know, and then all of a sudden the phone's ringing off the hook. The freelance life, it's like being on a high wire with wind blowing you back and forth. You know, and you're trying the whole time to keep your balance. Or my other metaphor is it's like tap dancing on quicksand. You know what I mean? You have to tap dance really fast so you don't sink. And you have to tap dance really well so that editor over there goes, oh, look at the way he's dancing. Let's hire him, you know? I've had guys, you know, sometimes you have to remind people who you are, you know, like I have this whole body of work and then I do one random story for somebody. And so all of a sudden I get a call from a company that hasn't called me in 2 years. Like they're suddenly reminded that I exist, you know? The freelance life is a very funny one. That's another reason why I've always, I'll do comics, I'll do animation, I'll do this, I'll do that. Because when that door closes over there, you always want to be able to jump through that door that's open over there. You have to always be on your toes as a freelancer. And I sometimes look back and I've said to my wife, how the hell have I done this for 40 years? You know, because it's, you know, when it's going great, it's the greatest thing in the world. And other times it takes a real toll on your nervous system. Sure. But the reason I've been able to do it is just what we started talking about, just the joy of story, just the joy of creation. And that's what keeps, every time I think I may be done, I'm laying in bed one morning and, it's a new story. Off we go again, you know? And what was his third question? He had 3 questions.
His last question was, what character have you always wanted to write for?
I've written almost most of them, but and everyone who asks me this question gets the same answer because it's the answer, the real answer. I've always wanted to do Fantastic Four with Giffen and McGuire. Mm-hmm. I always thought that our sensibility applied to the Fantastic Four. I am a huge Kirby fanatic. I love Kirby. I love the 60s Fantastic Four stuff. And Fantastic Four was cosmic, but it also had a great sense of character and a great sense of humor. And I think our you know, Giffen, DeMatteis, McGuire vibe would be great for the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, that would work for me.
Well, I'm kind of biased. Anybody asked me what you'd be good for, and I said everything. Name it, everything.
God bless you. God bless you.
Have you got a favorite character that you created? Your favorite creation?
Wow.
That
you know, that's that same answer. It's like pick your favorite child.
Well,
if I had to say, you know, Moonshadow was certainly among them. I did a series about in the early 2000s with Mike Plug called The Bodazad. We did it for CrossGen.
Yeah, CrossGen. Beautiful.
And then we took it and Disney bought us in our story, and we did it as a series of half prose, half comics books for younger readers. my favorite things that I've ever done. Just love that, and it was one of the most unfortunate things because basically we had planned 8 books. They canceled us after 3 for a variety of reasons that I don't need to get in here. And Disney owns it, and I can't get it back now. They paid us a good chunk of change for it because we thought we'd be going on with it for quite a long time, and then the whole thing collapsed. And that, again, there's the dangers of the freelance life. You know, you never know. One minute you're walking on solid ground, the next minute you're in the quicksand. But honestly, I wouldn't take any of it back, not a moment of it, because it's been incredibly gratifying and continues to be incredibly gratifying. Watch how I do this as we move forward with the DeMatteis and all these new projects for our Kickstarter that ends at noon tomorrow. So that was a good transition.
That's a fine art.
That was a really good transition. I also want to add that the books will be on sale. If you missed the Kickstarter, the books will be on sale still at the Spellbound Comics website for a while after that. So
awesome.
All right. You have one last question for me?
I've got a song. If it plays, I've downloaded one of your songs before we can have a quick listen to it.
I've heard that voice somewhere.
Walking beside you.
Interesting.
Standing so near to your love.
There you go. That's a little taster. But
now credits should be rolling over the music, right?
Yeah.
That song, by the way, just so you know, that song starts off. It's kind of like the song starts off quiet and acoustic and grows into this massive, massive thing by the time it's over.
Cool.
Anyway, so one last question before we go.
Go on, one last question. Kyle, go on. You go. Last question.
Oh no, I'm just gratitude. There's no question. It's I owe you 40 years of gratitude for profoundly affecting my life in some way. And helping
and don't think for one moment that I take that for granted. One of the great things about this business is because, and I know for myself as a fan, we're passionate about this stuff. And so when I have a conversation like this, when I go to a convention and someone comes to me and tells me this story or my work in general meant so much to them, I don't take it for granted. You know, it makes an entire career worthwhile. It really does.
Yeah, I do a segment on this called Character Studies when we don't have guests, and that was absolutely my first choice. I'm like, how do you do the concept of eternity? And it's like, well, you look at it at the human level. And then my concept of character studies is I'm not studying the characters of the comics. I'm studying how the character of the comics affected my character as a human and comparing and contrast them where, you know, I quote that book at least weekly or some variation of it 40 years after it came out. You know, I carried some of the things I learned in that book through combat.
Wow.
I mean, it just, you can't just to fathom how it's all, because you said it, you know, we're metaphysically linked to the whole things, but, you know, things I learned as a 13-year-old on, you know, compassion with people. And I'm learning compassion as a kid, you know, it teaches me to quit bullying, teaches me to look off to the side. Then I see the third world and I understand more compassion there and, you know, bring those people home. And then the brain clicks and goes, where did you see this? Well, the acceptance of the X-Men, Defenders 92. I could actually draw a straight line from going through Kuwait and Iraq to reading the X-Men and reading the Defenders.
Wow.
And how that made me a better person. And then, you know, I always strive to be a better person. Then I work with the developmentally disabled. Well, how can I apply these things to that? You know, what did I learn from my mother and the influences in my life? And you're in there with them. You're actually in there with them.
Well, I thank you for sharing that with me so eloquently. It really means something to me. So thank you.
So my question, Jem, is when are we going to see you in the UK? I would love you to come across to a convention.
Yeah, you know, honest to God, the last time I went to a convention in England was, I think, 1989. Now I've been in England since then, you know, but so not for a convention.
We have a fantastic convention in England called Thought Bubble. Check it up. It's actually where creators go. So it's purely about artists and writers. And this year, it's happening this weekend for this year, but you should look for next year because they will definitely pay your airfare and get you across there.
I'll just get on. Let me drive to the airport right now. I'll come right over. Yeah, you know, it's funny. Since COVID hit, I have not gone to a single convention, and it's been,
Okay.
and they're very, you know, it's a lot of fun on a lot of levels. And these international conventions, you know, my wife comes with me. We've traveled all over the world, and you know, you meet these people all over the world that have read and appreciated the work, and it's really fantastic, you know. So I'm hoping that next year I can start dipping my toes back in that.
I'm going to talk to the organizers of Thought Bubble and get them to invite you for next year.
Well, that would be lovely. That would be lovely. Well, great. Well, guys, thank you. This is I really, really enjoyed this, and Kyle, especially thank you for sharing what you shared. It means a lot to me.
Well, I'm gonna keep bugging you, so you know.
Send me your address, and I will send you a CD.
I'll do that, buddy.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Have a nice
My
dinner.
pleasure, guys. Yeah. Great talking to you all. Take good care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
There you go. Cool. How about
you
that?
Get all the questions. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. We're going to stay on a decompress for a while, right? You guys?
Yeah, probably for a bit, yeah. I like what I like the most of what you said about how he, you know, people showing a book and he thinks it's like there was no special book, but it was their first book, and so they, you know, so he never likes to talk down about them because I thought that a few times about when they kill off a character, like a minor character. I think to myself that was somebody's first comic book. That was someone's first character they ever read, that kind of thing. So that was something that kind of resonated.
Yeah, that was nice. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. You could get them to do Thought Bubble next year.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to the organisers because he will be a great guest to get across, and they pay all the expenses, so they pay their airfares and everything. So they, you know, and it's. I just
worry with the comic books. It's like it's quite trendy, isn't it? Like, will there be enough older guys there who knows the, you know? It seems to be that a lot of young hip artists, you know.
Yeah, Thought Bubble does tend to be the James Tinians and the There's some older guys there. Al Ewing is there. And Jock is there, but they tend to they're Brits, you know. So
it's easy.
Yeah, the younger one, you know, there's Ram V. He's Brit, but there's some as Aaron Campbell. So you know, you do get some Yanks going across, and you know. He would be, you know, he'd get all his expenses paid and he'd go across and it'd be really nice.
Yeah, you think so? Wouldn't be worth him turning out otherwise, would it? Yeah. Oh, Carl's gone.
Carl doesn't ask questions, does he? He just bombards you with compliments.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was just like, Carl, ask a question, please. Yeah, we're talking about it more off stream.
Kyle, we're talking about you while you're not here. You can watch it and come back.
Yeah, watch you later. Thanks. Please sub my channel. Someone on Twitch is actually watching. Now we can party.
I can hear you. I just had to run to the loo and take it out.
We were very nice about you, Kyle.
Yeah. And that was good. That was interesting. It was very, very friendly and very good, like great questions. I kind of like interested. I kind of wanted to sort of ask questions and look like you know, have more time so you can ask people. We were talking about how he envisages it. I was kind of thinking, how do you get the stories together? You get a picture in your head, and that's how you do it. That's kind of like, I don't know. I wonder if all writers write like that.
He's hugely creative. You know, as he described it, it's just like John Buscema. The way he described wanting to write every day was just exactly how John Buscema said he wanted to draw every day.
Yeah, makes sense.
And some of these guys just want to stop, you know. But the real creatives, the real ones who are into it, it's just part of their body and soul. You know, he wakes up every morning and he's got 1,000 ideas.
And they don't give up as well. I think another thing, a lot of the writers, I imagine, like he took like Stephen King, for example. He was just nearly giving up, wasn't he? Like he had so many stories that never got anywhere. There must be so many artists, writers who never get that kind of. Maybe they're not good enough. Maybe they're just unlucky. You don't know. Or maybe they're. I imagine a lot of people they take the rejections hard and stop trying. You know, I was going to ask him if the editor who rejected a lot of his work before he actually took one on, whether he was encouraging with it or not, or whether he was just, you know, a bit interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
if he's watching this on the rewind later, I'm asking you again to be on later, JM. It'll come. It'll come. We'll give you time. We'll give you time to get away from things and decompress. But I'll bug him again down the road. Now, while I had my John Thomas in my hand and was polite enough to mute my phone.
That's very decent of you.
John Thomas on
Yeah,
there.
thanks for letting us know that, Kyle.
Yeah, what was you saying about me?
We say you just too busy blowing smoke up his ass to ask him a question.
I asked my question. I told you the question I had was about the one punch. That was my question.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that wasn't really okay. Fair enough. That was the 5 minutes of like.
That was my communication with him, where I could actually tell him face to face, because I've told him. Well, I told him there. I told him 100 times.
Kyle, this is 2 Brits and a Yank. You know.
Yeah.
When we don't really into blowing.
Yeah.
Nah, but
smoke up people's eyes.
I was cringing. I got to admit, I was cringing.
Yeah, cringe over you want it. I got a CD coming to me, so
yeah, fair enough. That's fine. That's good. That's good. Glad to hear it.
No, but I'd never seen him in a convention. You know, we've had talks for years about he comes through Indianapolis. I'll make sure we pick him up. We take him to places he wants to see around town.
Yeah.
You know, and then things happen, and it may never happen. So if it doesn't happen, if that doesn't happen, I've told him online, but I got to tell him face to face, hey, dude, your shit profoundly affected me. Not a little bit.
I need to check out that Moon Shadows. I've never heard of it before, the Moon Shadows.
Yeah, you'd enjoy it, actually, Gray.
Yeah, the trouble is with me, like, I've now seen his name on millions of books, and I ask me to name one, I'll be like, because my brain's just crap, and I don't sort of concentrate on who's doing the writing and the art. But when he said Dr. Fate, I've got that whole run of Dr. Fate. And it's like, oh yeah, no, I remember that's when Kent Nelson like was replaced by his wife, that kind of thing, and when Naboo was like in the body of an old man, and but yeah. So I remember the stories more than I remember who did the stories. You know.
Bill, pop on.
Kyle's
concerning my parents' fee for Geeky Weekly.
Yeah,
I'll bung the actual link in the chat. If you guys aren't rushing off, I'll bung, and if anyone wants to come and have a chat,
yeah,
I'll bung the link in.
We should only get Bill on if he's going to show 100 Conan comics.
Yeah. We'll only get if anyone wants to come in.
No.
Not people I don't know. Got to be people. Oh, he's at work. No,
one clown dick is worth 100 Conans. He's
at work. This is not a good time for just bunk off work, mate. You've got my permission. Tell him you're suffering from a case of the ugly and you have to have a day off.
And mind you, I didn't dare touch my chat or nothing while that was on because I did not want to be bumped out like it does sometimes. I have no idea who said what in the chat. I will look at it. So I don't know.
That's good questions. Good questions in chat. I probably missed a few.
How many people did we get while he was on?
Oh, about 6. Nothing great.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of people regretting that.
Well, none of the London. I told you none of the people from London Loves Comics would come on.
Well, and again, it might not be their time, and they'll come back to it. You know.
Well, it's like it's. However, doesn't really matter. They can't bother. It's their problem.
Thanks for kicking Kyle. Yeah. Now we can party. Okay.
That's when you went off the loo.
I went off the loo and shut that off. I'll have to look at all the live stuff later. But
we've got Tom Mandrake next week.
Yeah. Now, what the hell are you guys going to do if I get Neil Gaiman for an hour?
Don't worry about that. I'll talk to Neil Gaiman for an hour. You two can bugger off.
And then
we're mute, Kyle.
If I'm going to facilitate, and I ain't buggering nowhere, but when I get the Alan Moore interview, I'm going to have to put stipulations on questions that can be asked, so we don't.
You two can bugger off as well for that one.
Well. I'm just going to sit here and look like him if we get Alan Moore on. I just do my best.
We can do an Alan Moore off. You can. We can do a vote in the audience.
If only there was money in being an Alan Moore lookalike. Oh man,
you went in, mate.
I wish.
You just
Never
need to
mind.
develop that Northampton accent.
Yeah, exactly. And I need to get. He's got loads of rings in here, like skull rings, and I've got some from my heavy metal days, but I have to dig them out.
But as an Americanism, you know, my Mount Rushmore, you know, top 4, top 5.
You said Mount Olympus, I think. You said Mount Olympus when you were talking about it.
He's literally in my Mount Olympus, if you want to look
at it. And your Mount Rushmore, okay.
But yeah, JM's in that with me. There's just a handful, an utter handful. You know, Neil Adams' artwork is amazing to me. But again, my conversation with Neil Adams would go 5 minutes. Hey, that was cool. That was neat. You know, here, sign this and we're good. And I'd be done talking to him.
Oh, I think I could probably do an hour with Neil Adams.
But
not now you can't, but yeah.
And when I get Bill Field on here, he'll be able to talk about it because he wrote that book with Neil right there at the end. And I'd love to get Bill on here sometime.
Mm.
And he can talk about the book he wrote, and he can talk about having them conversations with Neil.
Bill, if anybody can get Alan Moore, it's Kyle. He'll just blow so much smoke up his arse. He'll float.
And again, I don't blow smoke. I tell the truth. I wouldn't have said a damn word come out of my mouth to him that wasn't true. I legitimately thought about Defenders 92 while I was kicking around.
Is that a Four Stooges? Is it the Four Stooges? Yeah. Grayman, Mark, Kyle, and Curly. I'm guessing that's the Stooges.
With these writers, I could just talk for days. We could just sit around and I could literally just sit around drinking coffee or whatever the drink of choice is, you know, eating scones or whatever, and talk about the weather and inspiration.
No, I want scones and a beer.
Muses, like with musicians and stuff, conversations go to games we played when we were kids and the loves that profoundly affected us, you know, the muses. And it didn't matter if it was a girl broke my heart, a guy broke my heart, a girl and a guy broke my heart, whatever, you know, it didn't matter. And you could just go on for days and days in those conversations because it starts here and then it goes there and then it goes here and then it circles back around and then it goes and then hours are gone. And I could just do that for days on end with like writers and creative types, but I've managed so many of them and I've sat down in those conversations and I genuinely give a shit what they're saying.
Yeah.
Anybody with a decent bullshit detector can see right through it if you don't. So when I get guys like that, you know, it's no bullshit. There's no filter, but that's because there's no bullshit. I'm not going to put a filter on it because I'm not bullshitting him. If I'm bullshitting somebody, you're just trying to con them to get on. I'm not wasting my time. You know, that's why I haven't reached out to John Byrne yet.
I'm actually laughing at actual Dracula who says, I would love to talk about the weather with Alan Moore. It's cold and rainy.
Quite often is.
And you could literally get into a conversation with Alan Moore about cold and raining, and he could end up telling a Watchmen story. But it may take an hour to get there, and if you're willing to go through it and get there and give a shit about what he's saying, he may tell it. He may tell the hidden stories or the things he doesn't want to talk about, or, you know, screw this. So nobody's unreachable. Not in my book. Nobody's unreachable.
Oh.
They can tell me no all day long, but they're not unreachable. It's a small world. I was doing this 30 years ago when there wasn't all this. So I got the minutia, the hard stuff down. Now it's easy. Now it's type something in my phone, send it off. I'll hear something within a week. And I did. And here we are. You know, I hit a roadblock with Tom Mandrake. I sent an email. I walked across the room. My phone went ding. I came back. JM had already contacted Tom. Tom had already contacted me within 5 minutes.
Cool.
So I'm saying, make a list. Make a list. And I'll start checking them off. And we'll get these guys on here and pick their brains and have a beer.
Who would you want on, Mark?
So Gaiman, Moore, Ed Brubaker. Do you know it, Brubaker?
I've heard the name.
And I'll get.
He's
I'll
done quite a
figure
bit of
out how
stuff.
to
Did
get
he do 100 bullets? Did he have?
Yeah,
did he do 100
loads,
bullets?
he's done loads of stuff.
Yeah.
The
The
big one.
Cap
He's
relaunch. He's the one that killed Cap. So,
Okay. Yeah, I'm useless to remember who done stuff. I recognize the names, but it's like don't ask me what they did.
yeah. And we didn't even scratch the surface. That DeMatteis.
Bill agrees with me as well. Brubaker, he knows who he is.
Oh, see, he didn't do 100 bullets. Oh, apparently, he didn't do 100 bullets.
That was
He's currently he does this stuff with Sean Phillips.
Right.
Yeah.
Is he the one that is it Criminal? Is he the guy? He's the one that basically every top 5 spec video that Comic Mag Museum brings out, he always mentions one of his things. I think.
Yeah, he did Criminal. Yeah, and Fade Out, Fatale. I think is another one. But he worked on mainline DC and Marvel stuff as well.
Yeah.
So he's not just done those.
Yeah, he killed Captain America in Cap 25 during the Civil War.
And Billy's right. He works with Sean Phillips. And Sean Phillips is going to be at Thought Bubble, Bill, and I'm getting to sign my copies of Criminal and Fade Out.
But if I didn't lay back there with JM, I would have spent the whole hour talking about his run on Captain America.
Brian Azzarello did 100 bullets.
Azzarello. Yeah.
Right. Did Raven Hunter not come back to life? I was going to ask though. I'm sure because he kills himself at the end of Kraven's Last Hunt, doesn't he? Tops himself. I thought he'd come back into Marvel. Has he not come back into Marvel since then?
It's all flashback stuff and a different one. It's a kid. I think it's his kid.
All right. Okay. I just assumed that he'd come back at some point.
Oh, look, Alan Moore did an interview with the radio station here in Toronto
yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He does. He'll talk to people, and it's the same thing. If you're gonna talk to Alan Moore, go down the weird road.
Don't bother talking about.
Just we've got a YouTube channel with 3 old farts.
Yeah,
with
I can understand.
With no viewers, would he be interested in coming? He'd probably go yes.
Yeah,
he would.
Tell him halfway through we'll do a chant of some sort. We'll do some kind of chant.
I'm gonna break the internet.
Us.
When I tell you gaming's coming on, it's gonna break the internet. You're gonna crash your thing with how many people are coming on because. You know, I'll be the first to admit, sure, I'm full of shit, but come on, when I say I'm going to go do something, I'm going to go do it, and then people are going to be like,
I don't doubt you're going to try your best, mate. Let's see what happens.
I mean, the worst gaming is going to do once his people put me and link me in with him, worst he's going to do is say, can't do it.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm not going to sit and say it might be 10 people watching because I damn well know if word gets out gaming's on, forget about it. You're gonna have 1,000 live viewers, and it's gonna hit.
I seriously doubt it, mate. I seriously. If you did get him, I don't think I'd get more. I might get 20. Yeah. Most people. When I see people watching my streams, I'm like, oh, they must have taken the wrong turn. They seem to be watching one of my streams. I've never seen him before. It's like taking a wrong turn at Albuquerque.
I know
them on one of my streams.
I know 100 people that'd take the day off work just to watch that. So, and the fact that gaming is easily reachable. So, can you get?
He was on last week, mate. You need to. We had a Canadian comic book collector who is an expert at judo and has a world-class Warren collection. He was on last week.
Yeah, and Kal-El let him get 2 words in edgeways.
Yeah. But I did just send him a short stack of 1930s books.
I didn't know he was a judo practitioner.
Yeah. He's a judo. I think he was. But did he compete for Canada in judo? I mean, he was pretty good. It was black. You know, it was international level.
You got a black belt in origami, Mark. I can picture.
I've got a black belt in sitting down.
Yeah. Oh. Did you do? Yeah, because you said you did some MMA, didn't you? Tell us once, Carl. You did some MMA back in the day.
Yeah,
you must have learned combat in the marines and that.
I know a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but all I ever did was minor league stuff.
Yeah,
So
I just picture you. I just picture you in the rings as a combat training. You did like a Monty Python style thing. Come and move that grape.
I
Drop a 10-ton weight on the head.
You would not believe how bad I wanted to in some of them times.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh.
Now the scene where they're doing
let this dog out, and this dog just peeled paint off the walls.
Oh, is it?
God.
Oh gosh.
That was a dog popcorn fart that just moved the.
Oh dear. Make sure your comics aren't in that room.
Oh my God, no. Oh. Dog, did you have to do that?
Have you been feeding your dog dead rat again or something?
Oh my God, I think she ate a stink bug outside. I love you, puppy, but man, that thing hit me like a brick in the face. I lost my train of thought and everything. Yeah. But no, I was
that's what we have to remember. We have to remember that whenever we want to call a shout out for a minute, we get a dog to go in there and fart.
Yeah. But see, like I said, I can talk about blowing smoke all day long or being full of shit, but then I can go, well, this is on video and it's on YouTube and here's pictures and we can call these people and there's eyewitnesses. So, it happened. Been there, done that. Now people can go, he can't get big names. I got Barta came on the first show, JM's here, Mandrake's there. I'm in connection with Game.
Who knows? Maybe, and that's the thing. That's also a bargaining chip as well. You can say, "Oh yeah, come and do our show. We've had so and so and so and so and so and so on," and they'll go, "Oh, well, you've had those people on. Maybe I'll go on there as well. It must be the fun place to be. It's the Happening channel on YouTube with all 4 of its viewers."
Yeah,
don't leave that last bit out.
I just need to get up to 100.
You can tell them it's got viewing figures in the 4 figures, like 4.
I just need to get up to editing. The problem with this, it's a live broadcast. There were some really good bits there, and there was some Kyle. So sorry.
But again, look where it went. Look where it went.
It was still good. It was still good. Yeah, it was some cool. It was all good.
Still cool. It may not have been as cool to you, but it was that cool to me. And if you think about goobers like me, it was that cool to them. Yeah. So it's not going to be a broad swath of the audience.
Carl, you can add Rick Remender to your list. Bills, I agree. I like Rick Remender as well.
Yeah, Steve Niles. I can do it. I'm still trying to figure out if people want to talk to Richard and Wendy Peeney. I could get them on here probably. Well, I
haven't got a clue who they are. Who are they?
The ElfQuest people.
ElfQuest.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, no. The only ElfQuest I ever read, I was trying to sell to get rid of.
Yeah,
I have to say I'm not a huge. I've got quite a lot of ElfQuest.
Wasn't there an elf orgy or something in one of the? So I've heard there's an orgy on one of the issues of the ElfQuest or something.
That's the only one you'd be interested in, Greg.
I don't think I'd be interested in that even unless it's. I don't know how much the show exactly.
Do we want to keep the
phrase prick up your ears?
That's
do we want to keep this comic books because I can get
a strange way of doing it.
People have asked me about presidents, but I'm not even going to waste the time trying to get them on here. But Peeney's are cool.
If you know any presidents who are comic book fans, get them on. Talk to them I'd like to see Obama's.
Like when it comes to music comic fans, I'm telling you, Mick Jones. I'm going to get Mick Jones on. It's going to take time. But I'm going to find a way to plug that in and get Mick Jones.
You make sure you know the questions, mate, because I know nothing about the man much. So make sure you've got the music-related questions.
Talking comic history.
We could talk 2000 AD with him, though, couldn't we, Mark? We could probably talk 2000 AD with him. After the cows come home. That always makes me, not necessarily laugh. I remember as a kid, I said to my brother, I said, Grant, how old will we be in 2000 AD? And he went, you'll be 30. And I was like, 30? I was like, I can't believe how far back. That's amazing, though, And this is now 23 years ago. And it's 2000 AD, still going with the same name, even though it's 23 years to,
Yeah, well, it's like George Orwell's 1981.
84, yeah.
Kyle.
Yeah.
Have you got your list there? Bruce Timm, And Scotty Young, I'd quite like to have.
Well,
on.
again, just send me a list and I'll start checking them off and I'll start running through it and I'll check schedules. And
how about
conventions
like,
here.
I don't remember names very well often, yeah. But one I know that I liked, they did Blue Beetle, Paris Cullins.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. Paris Collins would be a good one. Everybody's accessible.
30,
everybody's reachable.
Yeah, 30, mate. I'll be 30. I was 30 in the year 2000.
But
what of it, sir? What of it? Honestly,
it'll be 30, and you'll still be watching cartoons.
Exactly, cartoons.
I can't take the T out of cartoons.
Cartoons. I don't take the T's
yeah,
there.
I mean,
you guys just can't hear it.
If you guys want to talk music, I can get in touch with a drummer of Soul Asylum or Collective Soul tonight.
I've no idea who they are. There's no point talking to them unless they like comic books. There's no point getting on people.
This is a comic show, Kyle. Greyman does a music show, so if you want to,
well, and that's what I'm saying. Your music show or whatever.
Well, I've done a heavy
Mick
metal hangout, but
Mick Jones is the big crossover. He is an uber comic nerd like us who could plug right into this and just have fun talking about.
He'll be good. He'll be good.
Yeah.
But
hey, I try and type the letter D, but I have to use my spell checker to add it because I haven't got a D on my keyboard. It doesn't work. It's most annoying.
Yeah, add a T and start learning how to pronounce it with the T. You're Cockney, man. I had cartoons.
The T's there. You guys, your inability to hit. Look, if you slim the T down to its smallest size, you can say a sentence a lot quicker. We like to talk quick down here in London, you know. We don't like to hang about with our conversations, like the slow drawls that you Americans do. Like it's like you're bloody hell. I've got time to brew a cup of tea by the time you finish your sentence. You know what I mean? We like to speak quick, get it out of the way, move on. We've got pubs to go to, women to shag. You know,
probably the way you have sex too, right?
Absolutely. What are you talking about? Yeah, of course. I've got comics to read. You know, got to get that nasty business over.
Yeah,
that's why you call it.
Yeah. I've got Defenders 78 to read.
Exactly. Yeah. I need to go and read Defenders 78 so I can gush like Carl does about it.
92, 78's a good one, but he wasn't on it till 92.
Oh, right, 92 was it? Okay.
But is that what you call getting your rocks up? Is having a tea and a biscuit, and by the time you're done with a tea and biscuit, you're done
biscuit.
Goodies.
Simple pleasures. A biscuit. Oh, I do love a biscuit. What about you? What's your favourite biscuit? Now we're talking about, and they are biscuits, they're not cookies.
Oh, my wife will never be on the show. My favorite biscuit's a biscuit I munch off the crack of her hiney.
Oh, gosh.
You know,
fair enough. Thanks for sharing.
There.
Thanks for sharing, mate.
Yeah, that's because if I'm gonna be punished, it's gonna be 3 hours into the show. She ain't gonna watch that. So, because I'm too.
We're talking about favourite biscuits. We don't need to know about what you get up to in the sack, mate. It's none of our business. You know.
I just want to have my wife make an appearance on here and go, "Hey, look, this is the beautiful thing. I've seen Lisa. I've seen Mark's wife. I've seen everybody's families. I can't get my wife to do anything other than like walk up in the distance."
Buttermilk biscuits. I've never heard of buttermilk biscuits.
Oh,
I remember I think when I went to America, I was 13. I quite like buttermilk. They did a drink called buttermilk in the
buttermilk.
Diners. Buttermilk was quite nice. I think root beer was horrible. I think root beer was
there's only one biscuit that matters. That was Wagon Wheels.
Yeah.
Really?
Except
they're a chocolate bar, mate. They're not a biscuit. They're a chocolate bar.
When we say buttermilk biscuits, we're talking about the flaky biscuits.
Marshmallow. I like a fruit shortcake. Nice fruit shortcake. I do like dried raisins. I don't like fruit, but I eat lots of raisins and some cartanas. But I don't eat them. I only eat them dried. I eat dried fruit, but I don't eat normal fruit. I'm weird like that when it comes to fruit. Very strange. But anyway, that's a completely by the by.
I hang on. I saw Mrs. Kal-El.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a doll baby, isn't she?
Was it on her OnlyFans page?
She was a good-looking woman.
She's a doll baby. She is an absolute doll baby.
So there you go. I'm one of
what the hell do you guys call biscuits?
I'm one of the few comic book community who have seen Kal-El.
Well, was that in the stream where you were discussing a trade or something?
Yeah. No, it was no stream. It was a phone call.
Oh, phone call.
So,
right.
What the hell do you guys call biscuits over there?
Biscuits.
No, you call biscuits and cookies biscuits.
No, you call cookies. You call biscuits cookies for some bizarre reason. They're
But
biscuits.
what do you call biscuits? What do you
Biscuits.
call?
Are you talking about what you Americans call biscuits?
You're talking about those.
We don't have
with
them.
gravy.
We don't have them. This is a
But
bizarre.
we call
them stupid crap Americans eat. Is what we call them.
But that's what he's talking about, buttermilk biscuits. That's what I'm trying to figure
no
out.
idea.
I think we call them dumplings, Gray. You know,
Really?
But
They're
dumplings are
dumplings, are they?
dumplings. Dumplings aren't biscuits. Dumplings are noodles. Biscuits are bread.
Noodles.
Dumplings and noodles.
Dumplings are
Next
noodles.
you'll be saying whales are monsters, and I have to kick you off the stream. We don't have any truck with that double talk here.
Yeah,
you're like 1984, like good is bad, and like it's a whole new language with wrong.
This is
things.
like saying volcanoes throw projectiles.
Yeah, I've had to go back on that one because I saw the cover of that properly, and there was actually a flame monster coming out of a volcano, which I didn't spot. I didn't see it.
And hey, before I forget, make sure to tell me as soon as possible if I have to do a backup slingers, because I have not looked at book one, but Roger and Roscoe have both told me keep it in mind because that hurricane slammed into Roscoe, even if it was a little one. So love to those guys. I know Roger peeked in, so that's a good thing there. But those guys are getting hit with another damn hurricane down there, and it apparently
Ranger Fly gets honorary UK status.
Does he? He likes biscuits.
Yeah, that's a good definition.
Yeah, it comes from the French. It means baked twice. Biscuits.
Biscuit.
Oh man, do like a biscuit. On my podcast, I do a heavy metal podcast. At one time, we had biscuits of the week as part of the show. That's just a stupidity. I go, Lisa Farmer, what are the biscuits of the week? And she come in, and the biscuits of the week are fruit shortcake or whatever the heck they were that week. They amused me anyway.
How many beer drinking videos you got in the bank, or you still got to?
Oh, it's over 30. Over 30 done already.
Have you got a month to spare, Kyle? You can watch all.
Oh yeah, go back and watch them all, mate. Go back and watch them all. You got to watch the one that I had my brother on. I went. It's not always with me and Elric. One time I did it with my brother. A couple of times, and one time I did with Lisa.
Is he ever going to come on? Is Elric ever going to come on here to do this, or is he a non-comic guy?
No, the only comics he had were Elric comics that his dad had, and he gave them to me on my birthday a couple of years ago. And yeah,
I kind of want to cross-pollinate all these, because when I get up to 500 subs, I want to put this on my channel and like make you guys pop culture icons in the States.
Yeah, all right, mate.
This is
Best
my
of luck with that.
dealer down
Best
here.
of luck with that, mate.
I'm already a pop culture icon in the Philippines, mate.
Really?
Yeah. So I did a YouTube video about. I was doing a whole series about the Suicide Squad last year.
Yeah.
I did one about what's the bloody thing called? The
Starro.
Starro. I did one about Starro. And don't ask me why, but it went a bit viral, and I got about 1,800 views on it, which I usually get about 50 views.
Yeah.
So, and I checked it out, and they were all 60% of the views were by 18 to 24-year-old women in the Philippines.
That's crazy.
You want to hear some crazy Philippine stories that'll turn your stomach?
No.
It won't turn your stomach in a bad way. It'll turn your stomach in a surprising way. Do you know why there are so many 18 to 24-year-old women in the Philippines?
Because Mummy and Daddy had children.
Women outnumber men, or did. I don't know the current stats, but did outnumber men 5-1 on the main island of Luzon. That's where all the major cities and all the Manila and all them are at. On the main island of Luzon, women outnumber men 5-1, because all the boys, they move them off to family off island.
Okay.
They move them off to family into other countries, and they keep the women population in PI so high because do you know what the #1 GDP in the Philippines is?
No.
Mail order brides.
You're in the ballpark. It is the #1 gross domestic product in the Philippines.
Oh, maid service.
Prostitution.
Well,
3 out of every
not sure
5
the
women in the
declares that.
Philippines are prostitutes or mamasans.
Okay.
It is literally they've built their monetary system domestically, not their exports, obviously, but domestically. And I know this firsthand. I've spent prolonged time in 88, 89, and 90 in the Philippines. And
basically, what you're saying is you helped their economy immensely in your time while you were there. Is that what you're trying to tell us?
I paid a few strippers to dance for me. Yeah, but that is literally, and it's crazy because I've told the other stories where they don't count the destitute.
Kyle, this just sounds to me like an excuse to the missing. Oh yes, I'm afraid I did partake of the main economic trade of the Philippines in order to support the economy. I was doing my bit.
I've never hidden the fact I love for strippers. I was known for hanging. I was the guy that dated strippers when I was younger. But I married a nice little house marm and things, but I'm not ashamed of anything like that. But now hookers, no. Never really felt the need to go down that road too often. I did it once to say I did it once, and I was double gloved. So just to say I did it, but other than that, now see where other guys.
My facts about the Philippines are rather more boring. They've got more karaoke machines than Japan, and 2 people have been killed for doing renditions of My Way that didn't get fed, were not enjoyed by the other people. So, I actually did because I did my podcast again because I do theme shows. I've done a Philippines theme show, and that's why I learned about that little fact. And also I did a tits theme show, and I believe that the Filipino women have got the smallest breasts in the world. I think it was the Filipino women, certainly in the lower end of breast size in the Philippines. Anyway, just a little fact that stuck in my head.
The non-half American ones, you can tell the difference. If they're 100% Filipino, they're more petite.
Okay.
If they're a GI's kid, and then they get.
We have gone off on a weird tangent today.
They're a petite.
Where's this connected to comics?
I know it's not in the slightest.
You talked about the Philippines. We went there.
The Tangent Comics. The Tangent Comics was a run of comics, and
Mark
we've definitely gone off on a tangent. So,
Mark was a pop culture phenomenon.
We were talking about who would like to get on in future shows. So
that's right.
Filipino strippers, I think, was the first thing he was asking to get on the show. Is that right? Or am I getting confused?
Hey, I've known my fair share of strippers. That's for sure. So
yeah, Mark doesn't like to talk about that, I'm sure.
I'm in the posh bit of Essex. We don't like.
Yeah. If you ever go on vacation in some of these countries in the Orient, like the main island of Luzon, it is a third world culture shock because you get like meat on a stick that's supposed to be chicken, it could be monkey. Every other business is literally every business or every other business is a strip club, bar /
one of the other facts I seem to recall is that America tried to colonize, had to take over like as part of their empire building, and the Filipinos kicked their ass and they kicked them out.
No.
That's what I read in the.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right.
People have had ideas to move on that and things like that.
They were so distracted by the main national economy of the Philippines that they were completely defeated, a bit like Vietnam.
Yeah, rational people don't want to be colonized.
No,
so that's always going to be there. I actually did. There are numerous times, it is the craziest thing in the world. When you're doing riot control, it's pretty scary, especially when you're not armed. And we had to do a ring around the base. And we had this thing called Shit River in Subic Bay. It's literally called Shit River.
Are we in the Philippines?
Yeah, we're in the Philippines. This is Subic Bay, the Philippines. There's a runoff off the main road on both sides. There's a runoff, and it's several places in Asia. They have these runoff things. Like in Japan, it's not illegal to walk off the side of the road and take a shit and then just walk away if you're shitting in the ravine, because it runs off the ocean. It's literally runs off to the ocean.
I'm starting to feel sorry that we're putting this on the same show that we had JM on. Like,
well, there you go. But Shit River and the Philippines are the two big ravines that run beside the main road, which run through the Subic Bay Naval Station and then off into one of the water runoffs on the edge of the island.
I talked about some of these mythological creatures on my Philippines show. Is one of them the vampire tree? I remember one time it was about a vampire tree. I can't remember if it was the Filipino show that I did that on or something else. But yeah, there's some creepy creatures in the Philippines in their mythology anyway.
Yeah, but in one part,
like Starro.
Yeah. They're also like Starro. Yeah, good point.
But in one part of Subic Bay at the main gate of the naval station, we had to do, like, part of the riot control was wearing the helmets and the flak jackets unarmed. But we had to link arm in arm across the front gate, and then on either side of Shit River, because nobody touched Shit River, you'd catch a disease just by touching it. And then along the entire gate, which was like a half mile of Marines linked arm in arm with the opening in between Shit River. And we're on riot control. And the people that are out front protesting and rioting are protesting our presence there. So I'm on riot control to a riot that's happening because we're there. You talk about a surreal experience. You know, they were, and a lot of it's just little old house marms that just like, get out, we don't want colonized, but people are legitimately angry. And as a dumbass American show of force, these people weren't going to climb the fence. They knew they'd get cut to ribbons. You jump a military fence in a foreign country, you're dead. They're not stupid. They're not going to rush the gate. You rush the gate, they're going to cut you down with a machine gun. As a posturing, they lined us up just as a show of badass force. So stupid. And I'm sitting there going, they're rioting because we're here and I'm standing here. So all we're doing is going, nah, colonizing, just fuck it. Let them be upset.
Them, basically.
They're not stupid enough to jump the fence. And our whole American colonizing thing was kind of like, yeah, we're here, get over it. So, but we own huge chunks of some of these countries, but Guam's a prefecture of ours. Other than that, they don't really want to take over those countries. They learned quick. You know, there were the Filipino insurrection of like 1901. Yeah, some Americans with big ideals wanted to make that a state.
I'm going to sign off, guys.
So,
yeah, I'm going to put an end to it as well. Might as well put an end to it because I've got to go and cook dinner. I didn't have dinner yet.
Yeah, I still got to do dinner too. So
see you next week. We'll have to do the write-up for the next week's show. Put it in the description. Send us your write-up for that as well.
Hey, don't ask me to write up Mandrake. Mandrake's your guy. You got
that's your job, mate. That's your job. You invite him.
I know JM. I know JM. I vaguely know Tom Mandrake. I mean,
you're the writer.
if you want to write up, though, I'll pull a write up. I'll pull it up. About, I may not be able to pull the same. It depends on how much I get mentioned on, how much I mention things historically and what he's working on there. So
yeah.
But yeah, sure, I'll do that. Just keep on me about that. And like I said, give me a heads up.
Yeah, I'll find out if I don't hear from anyone, if there's a spot on Cover Slingers or not.
Yeah, if Roscoe's got a bail, I'll find my.
Yeah, if Roscoe's got no power or something.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. Go and get my dinner on now.
Looking forward to next week.
Yeah. Now I want biscuits and beer. That's the trouble. Just mentioning them. It's like, beer, biscuits.
Hey, everybody that hung out in all them comments, thank y'all for coming in. We'll see you soon.
See you later.
See you later.
Bye. Bye. Bye, everyone. Thank